welcome to the List Week episode of the Boy Time Podcast. And as always, I'm joined by Babby.
Eee.
I didn't give a name, and that's fine.
It's list week. We're breaking the rules.
That's right. It's a little bit different. We are going to be talking about things that we watched or listened to or played, over the last week. We're going to be looking back over the year, talking about movies, video games, and TV shows. Our top 5 of each of those for the year. If you want to know our music opinions, well, then hop on over to the main channel. We'll be having a video of our top 10 albums of the year. And then is it top 10 reactions that we've done? Are we going to keep it with the 10?
Top 5.
Top 5.
We can do 10 if you want, but
5 is fine with
5.
me.
Yeah.
We'll do 5. Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing this week. It'll be great fun. So grab yourself a Sprite cranberry, cozy up next to the fire with a big an Irish sheepdog, and put on some lo-fi beats in the background. Put this podcast on your TV so that you can listen to it and music at the same time. And we're
You
gonna
have ADHD.
yeah, and then on the phone that's playing lo-fi beats, you play Subway Surfers.
You scroll X, the everything app.
That's right. An app that I have more or less abandoned over the last couple of weeks because I keep getting racist and misogynist things on my feed, and I'm not a fan. But
I'm sick of seeing steak ads. There's a steak ad on everything.
True. That's true too. But I've gotten this is a little bit of a tangent. So sorry if you just got cozy, but man, it's like the most racist things I've ever seen in my whole life. And then it'll have like 50K likes. And then I'll go to report it, which I know is a lost cause. But I'm like, there's no way. Because this is it's worse than some stuff that I've seen from the 20s, where it's just real hate speech.
It's bad.
Really bad caricatures and just straight up calling for attacking minorities. And I'm like, well, this has to be bannable. And then they're like, actually, no, this is all kosher. I'm like, okay, I'm going to distance myself from this platform. So now I'm a hermit. I don't really know what's going on in the world, but I'm going to put myself out there and talk about movies, TV shows, and games that I experienced this year. Now, what do you want to start with?
I don't know.
It's a difficult decision.
It is. I have games first on my list. That's probably the category that I have the most to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can start with games. Why not? I'm kind of surprised that games is the one that you have the most to talk about. But
It's not always for a good reason.
oh, okay. Well, then I guess we'll get started. Do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, strictly top 5. I have no honorable mentions. I think these lists are always pretty bare bones because I don't watch a lot of things. Music is my thing, and that's pretty much it. And then when I find a game or a TV show, I stick with it for a while.
Sure.
But I'm always interested in one racing game per year because it's something where I can shut my brain off, and if I need to listen to a challenging album or something, it gives me something to do with my hands and my eyes.
There you go.
So I got into Need for Speed Unbound as my number 5. I chose this one because it's weird and strange and quirky. It kind of works. The Need for Speed franchise has been going for I think 20 something years at this point. Most Wanted on the PS2 was one of my earliest video game experiences and one of my best video game experiences. That game is incredible. But Need for Speed Unbound takes it's a very strange concept. A$AP Rocky is the the main spokesperson for the game, and he's also heavily included in the game, which
What?
is really weird. Yeah. Um, and the game like has realistic looking cars and things, but it mixes it with these weird vector graffiti graphics and things like a something you'd see in like a really arcadey racing game, and they mix the two together.
Oh.
Um, it's very strange, but the customization is crazy. You can make some very ugly or cool looking things. Um, it has the old school Need for Speed kind of style and narrative of the street racing and the pink slips and the um, rivalry of all of these crazy events and insane cop chases and stuff. Um, I've played Need for Speed games for a lot of them, and a lot of them kind of suck. There's a couple that are just like really stand out, and then the rest are just kind of okay. This one kind of stood out as being different in like a cool nostalgic way, and it kind of holds up pretty decently in my opinion.
Hmm.
um, it really dives into being super arcadey, and that's something that I like because I think nowadays racing sims are kind of the hot thing where everything is super realistic and tight and you have to be super involved with it. This one, it just feels like a classic Need for Speed game. You do your drifts, you go fast, you run away from the cops, you customize your car to be insane and crazy. Um, and I enjoy it for that. I do think it kind of fails in terms of narrative and characters just because
Hmm.
like it tries too hard to like relate with this weird subsect of the population which I don't think exists, which would be underground street racers that are all creeds and colors and ages, that are all super accepting of each other except for like one person who's very angry and like dismissive all the time.
And
And
that's
then you have
ASAP
ASAP
Rocky.
Rocky who is just kind of like there. Um, being like incredibly motivational for some reason. Like there's a mission where you have to pick him up and take him away because like his car
Mm.
is like surrounded by the cops and he needs to make a getaway. And then you just like take him on a high speed chase for 5 minutes to a safe house. But the whole time he's just going on and on and on and on about like what motivates him and why he got to where he is as an artist. I'm like, this has nothing to do with racing. You're just yapping. Um, but with that being said, his car was pretty cool. I enjoy the graffiti effects. I know some people were like, "Ew, that's weird. That's unrealistic," but I like that. It stands out. And I think the city is based off of Chicago, which is fun to drive around. So, yeah, it's a solid Need for Speed game. It is hindered by all the usual EA issues of
Oh.
bad servers, incredibly huge microtransactions, and that kind of thing. But I always like to highlight the actual devs working on these games and not just the big parent company ahead because there's always good ideas underneath the surface, and this one's pretty decent. So,
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad that you talk about racing games because that is something that I do not really play. I think like the two genres I don't really touch are racing games and sports games for the
mhm.
most part.
I feel like
So
GTA is probably the most driving you get in a video game.
probably, I don't know. Yeah, probably. Or like, I don't know. The furthest I'll go is Mario Kart, but even that, I'm not really
True.
like playing it like
Yeah.
all the time. It's more like a party game, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know, just not really something I grew up playing. Maybe I'll get into it. Um, I will, once we're done with gaming, I will be announcing a kind of sub project that I'll be working on next year for the podcast that is gaming related. And
Okay.
I've been working on it for the last couple of months, and yeah, it will have to do with one of the games on my list. So we'll be jumping into that. But my number five, I'm ashamed to say, I think I may have only played four games that came out this year. One of them is a technicality, but it was listed as a release date for this year, so I'm going to count it. But I'm going to have my number five be the Resident Evil 4 remake. I think that
Hmm.
came out last year. But I
I guess
didn't.
I should note that none of my lists are based off of just this year. They
Okay.
are just things I've done for the first time, mostly this year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, me too. I think shows especially. I
Yeah.
watched one thing that came out this year. Maybe it was a bad idea to include shows, but uh whatever, we're here. And I
We're doing
watched
it.
shows. So I'm going to be talking about stuff that we experienced this year.
Yes.
Um, and Resident Evil 4 remake, I really wanted to shout it out because it kind of got me into the Resident Evil franchise. I had a little mini deep dive this year. I've been kind of wanting to go back, but I played the original Resident Evil 4 and then the Resident Evil 4 remake, and then Resident Evil 7. I think I played that one next, and then 2, the 2 remake. And all of those are fantastic games. One of them I will never play again. I'll let you be the judge of which one that is.
Not the one with the old people in the
It's
scary old house.
it's not that one. That one I can't believe I actually beat it, honestly. Because that is like one of the scariest
Terrifying.
things I've ever experienced in my life. Um, yeah, I think what makes, I guess, horror games different than horror movies is that horror movies end after like 2 hours. But
Hmm.
Resident Evil 7 took me like maybe 10 or 15 hours to beat because, and this is my own fault, I am a little bit of a completionist. So, like, I was like, oh, there's little things for me to find. I'm going to go do that. But that means that I have to stay in this world, in this house for longer. But man, wouldn't it be nice to see that achievement pop up? And so I did do a little bit of that, which took a little bit longer. But uh, yeah, I've not really a horror game guy in general because I am such a baby. But I think the Resident Evil games kind of strike this interesting balance where there are horror elements, sure, but especially 4 and 2, those are essentially action games that just kind of have a spooky theme to it. Um, the original Resident Evil is like for sure survival horror, and I guess there's horror elements in 4, but 4 by far is like the least scary of all of them, especially the remake. The original Resident Evil 4 I think is scarier than the remake because of its limitations. A lot of I think Resident Evil 4 remake is on the same engine that they made 7 and 8 on, so it's cleaner, it's easier to control, visuals are better, and I think because of that, it's less scary because you can make out everything. It's that old kind of horror trope where the less you see of something, the scarier it is. It's the reason why like half of the population that saw Jaws is like scared to go in the ocean. You don't even see the shark until like the last 15 minutes of the movie. You just see the aftermath of it, and that's always more scarier than seeing the thing. Um, but I do think as a game itself, Resident Evil 4 Remake is better. There's like certain things where like weapon upgrades and things actually feel, worth it because in the original Resident Evil 4, it's just like, oh, you spent all your money on upgrading your starter pistol. Well, here's a new pistol that is better in every way, even with your fully maxed out starter pistol. So then it's just like, well, then why? Why would I even dump a bunch of resources into upgrading something if it's just going to be replaced by something better anyways? The remake, it actually feels like worthwhile because you can cycle through those pistols and or all of your weapons, and they actually feel like worth it. Where it's like, well, maybe situationally you'll want to use this pistol because it has like a 3 round burst or something, and if you're in a tight spot, that might be better than something like a revolver or something that'll do high damage to one person, but then takes a long time to reload. And if you're getting swarmed by 8 priests, uh, sorry, pal, you don't got enough bullets in the chamber. That's what Dirty Harry said, I think. But yeah, both of them are great games. I just wanted to shout out Resident Evil 4 Remake because I missed it last year and I think it's a very, very good game.
Neat.
Thank you.
All right. There's a crazy quality curve for my list. I think 5 through 3 is in the decent category, and then it skyrockets
Oh,
for
okay.
the back half. Um, but number four, technicality, it's Cyberpunk 2077. Um, I played this game before,
Yes.
but it was right when it came out on an old PC, and I was rushing to get through the game before it finally broke for good, and I
Yes.
couldn't play it anymore because that was a real concern when this game came out. Um, so we replayed this year,
We did.
both of us, and
Hmm.
we did a feature on it, so you can listen to that.
Yeah.
I don't know if my feelings have changed too much. It's okay. It's a decent game. I think it gets way too much hype for what it is
Oh
now.
yeah.
Um, why I don't really know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Good
Um,
anime.
yeah, I have not seen that, but
I don't
apparently
know.
that is quite good.
Yeah.
But they just had a patch come out too,
They
and I
did.
think they had a third party studio work on it, which was interesting,
Oh.
since they're probably all in on The Witcher 4 right now or whatever they're doing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Cyberpunk is decent. I did get a lot of enjoyment out of it this year in terms of the combat and just kind of doing stuff around in it. We talked about the combat a lot. It's not like the most innovative thing in the world, but you could do some pretty cool stuff, and you feel like literally unstoppable at certain points in the game, and that makes for some fun combat scenarios that I enjoyed. I really love that they fixed the driving in it. I feel like that's a lot more enjoyable, and I tend to like actually. I think I purchased all the vehicles for that one achievement or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Um, but it was fun to drive around on those to get to different points and missions and just like go around and do all the little tasky things you have to do. So that was a lot better. Um, I still think a big lack of this game is story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool side quests that don't necessarily pertain to the main quest, but then when it's time to do the main quest again, you're kind of like, okay, you can just go through the motions. Um, I don't know. It's a solid game. I still have a lot of mixed feelings on it. I don't think I would play through it again. I did enjoy the DLC a lot though, so I think that's why this is on number four.
Mm.
Um, I just enjoy spy stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
it just makes everything a lot more fun, especially when you got Idris Elba in there. It's a good time, even if it is a kind of cliche spy story. By the time it's done, um, I still enjoy the sneakiness of it, and I think the what was it? What's the area called?
Dogtown.
Yeah, the area of Dogtown was fun with the casinos and the being in a baseball stadium and everything. I thought that was cool. So it's solid. It's at number four because I did get enjoyment out of it, but it's one of those where it's like I'm not really praising it for any of its specific things. It's kind of like Need for Speed, where it's like it's a game I played and I did enjoy my time and I put some hours into it. But it's not something where I'm like, oh my god, this is groundbreaking or left an impact on me in any real way. Um,
Sure.
but I'm glad I was able to at least play through the game in good quality graphics without having to worry about consistent crashing or bugs or
Mm.
something that would like not make you progress through the story, which is kind of a bare minimum thing. But it's great that I got to get the full experience out of this game finally. So that's my number four.
Wow. I was not expecting Cyberpunk on your list. I feel
I
like
had to think of
we were
games.
we were both somewhat negative in that
Yes,
feature. So I was kind of surprised to see it crack your five. But I guess if you don't play many games, even the
I
worst
don't.
things you play crack that top five list you played
Hmm.
this year. Cyberpunk won't be on my list. I
I didn't
just
think so.
I just I just want to get that out there. The rest of these games came out this year. Uh, and this next one is actually by a developer that I really, really like. The game is called Angerfoot. It's a Devolver game developed by Free Lives, the studio that made Broforce and Gorn, which is my favorite VR game. Don't at me, I guess. I don't know if anyone cares. But Angerfoot is a big, I guess, return to form for them because I think their last game, maybe the game they're still working on, is Terra Nil, which is like a civilization building game with an emphasis on like environmentalism and like balancing like industrial needs of your town with like destroying the environment. It's a big switch up between like the big action heavy gore filled games that they made before. Uh, So they were like, well, you know what, we're coming back. Anger Foot came out this year in July. I feel like a bunch of people are sleeping on it. Um, I don't feel like it has that many reviews, but this game has such a unique atmosphere and style to it. It's a genre of game that I'm not usually a fan of, those being like speed games, I guess. Any game that has like a speed run timer in the top left hand corner, I usually am not drawn to that because I'm like, I like to take my time. I like to explore the world and I don't want to be on a timer. Even if it is just self imposed where it's counting up and not down, it's still like that's stressful to me. But this game has that infectious quality where it is like so like pick up and play, where I mean, actually, I don't know if that's true because this game is stressful as hell. Because it is like a bullet hell where like you get shot twice and you're dead, but everyone else dies in one hit too. And basically, you're managing your ammo uh, by like shooting people, and then you can throw your gun at people to stun them, and then you go in with a kick. A lot of this game is centered on kicking because it's called Anger Foot, and you can unlock a bunch of different sneakers and stuff. Each one gives you a bonus. Um, and so yeah, I think it's one of those games. I think everyone should at least try it. It's very it's interesting. It has this kind of like sludgy, gross atmosphere because I think like every gang in it that you're going up against is like a different type of like crime. Where there's like a murder gang, and then there's like a littering gang, and I don't know. It's like it gets weird, but it's quirky and fun. If you're into the kind of free lives, like humor and that kind of, I don't know, mood, then I'd say check it out. It's a whole lot of fun. That being said, I have not beaten it because I could play like 2 levels of it and then I have to turn it off because like my heart rate gets too high. It like really stresses me out, but it is very, very good. There's no denying the quality. And I just want to shout out this little indie gem that maybe some people have missed this year. So that's Angerfoot.
Epic. I'm also going to shout out an indie gem with number 3. Um, Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
That's not an indie gem.
The most indie game ever made. Um, yeah, this is a Treyarch Call of Duty, and I feel like Treyarch just makes the best Call of Duties. Like, just plain and simple. They are the dev with the most heart and soul that they pour into their games, while being extremely limited by Activision's continuously overreaching hand. But we'll get into that. Um, but I think this game on launch is probably the best Call of Duty that's been released in a long time. I know Modern Warfare 19 was pretty 2019, I should say, was pretty solid. It was the big switch up for the game that became more streamlined between all the three big studios. You got Warzone with that,
Mhm.
so it was the big kind of revival of the series. Um, but I think this game kind of masters that new balance. I think there was always an issue with Call of Duties for a long time is that they got rid of all of the bare bones stuff that made the game enjoyable. Like
Mhm.
there was no challenges or progression or a real challenge to do things. And if there was, it was extremely annoying and not fun to do. Camo grinds were atrocious and terrible to do. You had to do these really weird things that nobody like plays like that, and it's just annoying. There was nothing to work for in terms of completion. The replayability was pretty dead. There was insane microtransactions everywhere. Some of those are present in this game, but I think on launch they delivered a pretty solid campaign, a pretty solid multiplayer, and a really, really good zombies experience. So it actually felt like a game that was worth paying full price for,
Mm.
which is rare for a Call of Duty game. And it's even better because it's on Game Pass. It's the first year that they're doing it on
Oh,
Game Pass. So I didn't have to pay for it, which is great. That makes the microtransactions being shoved down our throats a little bit easier to take when you don't have to pay $70 for a AAA game that feels like it's barely put together.
sure.
Um, I think part of that is this was the first 4-year life cycle of a Call of Duty game. So they release a game every year, and the devs are constantly in a cycle making a new game so they can continue to release new games. I think it's a horrible business model, but it's what they do. But this is the first one with 4 years of development.
Hmm.
Um, the campaign is pretty good. I was wondering where they were going to take it because Treyarch likes to set their campaigns in the real-ish world where they include real life figures. Like I think Clinton is in this campaign and Saddam Hussein.
Oh,
Um, I was interested to see where they were going to take it because they set up Saddam like actually having WMDs, and I'm like, this is stupid.
that's not
But
true.
then it turns out that Saddam actually bought the WMD from the Americans from a secret CIA lab, and that the actual thing was like a gas that made people hallucinate and like go crazy on bath salts and beat people up. And
Oh,
it's all like a big conspiracy with like all these different psychological elements. And like that's why I like Black Ops, because it doesn't try too hard to appease to the whole like military stuff that Modern Warfare does. They make atrocious decisions in the Modern Warfare games because they blame terrorist events on other countries when the United States is actually the ones that do those.
yeah.
Um, Black Ops is like, we're going to take a look into the CIA and all of these secret divisions around the world that do really scummy things. Sure, we're going to justify those in certain ways because you have to. The military is tied to this franchise, but they get to have a lot of fun with like the weirdness of it. There's a whole mission in this game where you go down into a secret base of an old CIA project that was funding and developing this weapon, and it's completely abandoned. And you are like you fall down an elevator shaft and get exposed to like the gas weapon or whatever that it is that makes you hallucinate. Um, so then you have to go through and like go to these different sections. It felt like BioShock. You
Hmm.
had to go through these like different scary sections, and everyone had like a boss that was like a mannequin zombie type thing that would chase after you.
Oh,
There was a level where all these mannequins would stay still, but as soon as you start moving and look away from them, they'll move towards you. And then if you stop and turn around, they'll be right in front of you.
oh,
So it gets crazy, and I enjoy Treyarch games for that. Um, Multiplayer is solid. The maps were okay. The gunplay is really nice. They added a new movement feature where you can kind of like slide and dive any direction. It's a much
mm.
needed movement update. It actually gave controller players a huge upgrade over PC players for a long time.
Oh,
They fixed that recently with just like visual recoil stuff, so now it feels better. But I was getting destroyed by controller players, which is not usually the case.
mm-mm.
But the zombies mode is fantastic. We got two fully fledged maps. Um, there's always a divide because zombies is not what it used to be. There's a completely overhauled system that they introduced with Cold War, which was their pandemic game, I think, in 2020,
Yes.
um, which was decent. I mean, they kind of war zonified it where there's armor and salvage and all these different things. It's not just simple get your gun out of the mystery box and just like go round after round. Um, it, it worked in that game somewhat, but I think it was too easy and it didn't have that zombies kind of mysticism that we like from it.
Mm.
The storyline wasn't there. The Easter eggs weren't inspired. It wasn't Treyarch enough for me. It was kind of stale. This game kind of perfected that. I think the two maps we got on launch were both really great. The atmospheres are great. The main quest Easter egg type things. I feel like there's a lot of budget put into them now. There are full cutscenes like in the map. There's like 25 something side quests you can do in each map. They just released the DLC one map, which is a uh, medieval castle in France, and there's elemental swords that you get to build and upgrade.
Oh,
And the main quest for that map is just like the best thing they've done in zombies in a long time. It's endlessly replayable. You can do the steps any way you want, and the boss is genuinely difficult. So I had to go through it 6 or 7 times before I beat it, and I had to optimize everything and
oh,
really look at like how can I shave time off here and get more points here, and that's awesome. I have not had an experience in that area for a Call of Duty in a long time, so I'm enjoying that they're really nailing that. Um, so it's a really solid game, but we have Activision pulling the strings, so that means a Call of Duty game gets actively ruined as it goes on longer. Usually, um, I think the biggest issue this year is AI.
mm.
We're seeing AI infiltrate this game so quickly. There's a ton of even microtransactions that you have to buy that are AI art, and they did not
Oh,
disclose it, but people have been finding it because you can buy loading screens and you can unlock loading screens, and they are blatantly AI. Um,
gross.
it's horrible, and they've been not transparent at all about the usage of it. Furthermore, there's been a voice actor strike because of the use of AI rights. That was part of the SAG-AFTRA stuff from last
Yes.
year as well. Um, so Activision is not having protections against AI usage of voice actors in this game. So the entire zombies cast, like of an we have a set crew and people are excited about it for the first time since like Black Ops 4 of 2018 or 2019. Um, all of them are gone. Activision fired them because they are not willing to have AI voices of themselves made for additional content,
Ugh.
and they were not willing to negotiate. So now they have to replace the entire cast with actors after we've already gotten familiar with them and they do great work. There's even people that have been in the series since World at War, which I think came out in like 2007,
Yeah,
that they
something like
just
that.
dropped because of it, um, which is horrible.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's a really solid game. I think Treyarch as a studio is really fun. I just would love to see what they can do if they ever were able to split from Activision and make their own games and like really go up to their full potential. Because I think as a dev studio and a storytelling studio, they are really great despite being kind of this pigeonholed AAA, Call of Duty shooter type studio that they're kind of pigeonholed into. But
Mm.
um, it's a very solid Call of Duty. I still enjoy it. I hope that they solve some of these issues because I do believe the people that work at Treyarch really do care about the game and they put a lot of heart and soul into it compared to the other studios that work on it. But
Yeah.
it's always a push and pull with this kind of thing. But very solid. I still wanted to talk about it and give it a shout out because it's the most fun I've had on a Call of Duty in probably 10 years or so.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember Cold War being fun.
Hmm.
My favorite part of Cold War was asking people what their favorite pizza toppings were.
That's true. We
Uh,
got Prop Hunt back too, which was great. Prop Hunt was
oh,
amazing in that game.
that was fun. I really like Prop Hunt. Shout out Call of Duty, man. Shout out Activision. Shout out
Shout out
Blizzard.
Activision Blizzard.
Shout out Microsoft.
All the big dogs.
Phil Spencer, the
My
GOAT.
guy.
A lot of people have called him the GOAT in the gaming industry. My
It's
favorite
true.
thing that Phil Spencer said was, I think we need to throw in the towel on the whole console wars thing. I'm like, you know what? I guess I'm glad you came to your senses. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Shepard. That's from Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I
Old
know
one.
at one point there was a guy named Shepard. I'm
Hmm.
definitely not thinking of the guy from Mass Effect
There was a guy called Shepard.
in Call of Duty.
Yes.
Okay.
He murks a fan favorite character in the second Modern Warfare, I think.
Ghost,
Yes.
Richter,
The Ghost.
Ghost. I didn't even know. I didn't know that that was the name of a
You were
character.
correct.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad I
You
guessed.
win.
Yes, well, I know they named a whole game after him.
That's true. One of the worst.
Call of Duty Ghost gets killed by Commander Shepard from Mass Effect.
Yep.
Anyways, my number 3 is another indie darling turned pop sensation. It's called Balatro,
The
everybody's
bird.
game of the year. I have it at number 3. So sorry, all you Balatro heads out there. This is a game that I was very slow to, I think, pick up on. People were going crazy about it. It was on my radar for a while because I'm a big fan of roguelites and roguelikes. And so when people were like, it's a poker roguelike, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know poker at all, but I like deck building games. And I like roguelikes, obviously. So I thought, you know what? I'll try it out. And I'll say this, it's not really poker at all. Like the only thing about it that's poker is just like the hands that you play. But other than that, it's strictly a deck building roguelike, which are some of my favorites. I really like Slay the Spire, obviously. I'm very excited for Slay the Spire 2. I think that's coming out next year. So who knows? Maybe it'll be on my list next year. But I think Balatro, for me, It just doesn't have that replayability that a lot of roguelikes have, strictly because I never felt like I was getting better at the game. It's one of those, I think, and I don't mean this to sound pretentious, but I think it's one of those that like I think casual gamers are really going to pick up on because it is just like it's something that you can like play a little bit at a time. They just well not just, but recently they added it to like they made a mobile port of it. And so like if you just like you're on the bus or something or you know you're just on an airplane, like this is like a perfect game for that. But for something where it's like for me I really like to get like engrossed in something and like fully digest it and 100% it. Balatro is kind of hard to do that, especially because the last trophy is borderline impossible. I think when I checked last, which was probably a couple months ago, there were only 5 people in the world that had gotten it, which would have been cool to get because that would have been, you know, impressive, and I would have been in the history books or whatever. But it is like I said, it's impossible basically, where um, basically each deck that you can get in that game, each deck gives you a little starting bonus. Each one of those has like 8 difficulties. Last difficulty being the golden difficulty, which basically combines all of the difficulties together and then adds like one thing on top of it. Um, and so I think the second to the last achievement is getting like a gold on all of the decks, which I think there's like 10 of. But then every time you beat one of those decks for the first time with a like a all your jokers, then those jokers get a little stamp of the difficulty that it beat. And so the last achievement is get a gold stamp on every single joker card, which would mean like beating the hardest difficulty with some absolutely trash jokers, which are like the kind of modifiers that can like stack and then really get you to beat the game. So it's like pretty much impossible. Like the only like way to get it is by pure luck, and I wasn't gonna sink 100 hours into it trying to get gold stickers on all of my jokers. But it's a fun game, kind of pick up and play. It's fine. I don't know. I feel bad kind of having it at number 3, but it is probably, I mean, it's higher quality. Uh, a lot of people really, really like it. I really liked it for like a month, and then I kind of stopped, which I think is fair. So I don't know. Shout out Balatro. Shout out the. I think it was just made by one guy who was like, I think he was for a class project or something, or maybe he was just like doing it in off hours while he was in school. And then it blew up and it's like the biggest indie game of the year. And it was nominated for Game of the Year. So good on ya. Didn't win. A lot of people are upset that Balatro lost Game of the Year. Um, it's fine. I don't know. I like Balatro. It's number 3. Play it. You probably already have, but you should try it again.
Do it. Play it again.
Play it again for the first time.
All right. Number 2? Yeah, number 2.
Number 2.
In typical fashion, I'm a year or two late on everything when it comes to these categories, and not music because that's the one I'm on top of. But everything else I lack at. But 2 and 1 are extremely close. But it's got to be Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, this was on my list last year.
Exactly. I'm a year late, but that's okay. This game is phenomenal.
Yes.
This is where the curve just goes crazy. We go from okay to like borderline perfect.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, this game is phenomenal. I've sunk in like 160 something hours into it this year. It is amazing. I played it solo.
Mm-hmm.
We've played it with 4 of us,
Yes.
and we're doing a honor mode run
We
currently.
are.
First attempt. Have not died yet. We're still going.
We're in Act
Um,
3.
Act 3, which is surprising. It surprises me every week. Um, but
Got
yeah,
her.
this game is just incredible. I think for us being D&D people and have had campaigns in the past, they never really get to the heights that, D&D is supposed to take you to because one, it's a lot of work, and two, it's a little bit more difficult without the actual uh, thing in front of you to really dig into. So this game kind of accomplishes that, but the characters are amazing. All the different classes and things are incredible. There's so many ways to do things in here. Like even as we continue to play through like 3 or 4 runs, there's new things where I'm like, oh, I didn't realize you could do that.
Oh yeah.
Um, Everything just seems so well put together. There's so much heart and soul in it. We've done a feature on this, so if you want more lengthy discussions, go listen to it.
It's a good one.
So I won't yap for too long, but um, yeah, it's incredible. This is a type of game that like I don't really play a lot. I'm not too big into like this kind of style, but I mean, having known D&D, I think it's an easy on ramp to this kind of thing. Um, and yeah, I think they're getting a patch next year with like 12 new subclasses, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's like endlessly replayable. There's so many different things you can do. There's mod support now in the
Hmm.
actual game engine. Um, yeah, it's incredible. I think one of the very 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 few AAA games that actually lives up to its reputation and more.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I would not mind paying like full price for this and all that. So um, yeah, incredible game, fantastic. It's great on your own, but it's great if you have a party to
Hmm.
go at it with too. So yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's great for all play styles. Yeah, I was about to say I didn't realize games from other years were on or at play, but that was my number
Yes.
five. Baldur's Gate 3 is phenomenal. Probably my favorite game of the decade, maybe. I'd have to really go back and see what came out
Hmm.
this decade, but it's definitely top five.
Yeah, all my lists do not stay within this year parameter.
That is fair. That is fair. I want to see how many hours I have in Baldur's Gate 3. I have
You have
356.
it.
Yeah, and most of that was this year because this game completely ate me up uh, in the beginning of the year when I was unemployed.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Gang, gang.
I'm still missing 3 achievements, and I will eventually go back
And I
and get
will
them.
get them.
I will get them. I was waiting for the last patch because they were adding achievements every patch,
Mm. Hmm.
but they didn't add any last time. And I don't know if they're gonna do it for the next one, but I should just probably do that. I should just do that right now, as we're
Right now.
talking.
End the podcast.
Yeah. Sorry if you're listening to lo-fi beats and playing Subway Surfers. I need to get 3 achievements really quick, even though one of them is in Act 3. So
Hmm.
I'll just do that really fast. My number two. This is kind of a technicality. This is the one that was listed as it came out this year, but it's been in early access for a while. My number two game is Satisfactory.
Yes, sir.
I love a good simulation game, one where you can. It doesn't really matter. There's no story. There's no like music. You can like throw on your own music or throw on a video essay or a podcast, and you're just kind of like doing some work, like Power Wash Simulator or the house flipping game or any of those, or even something like crime scene viscera cleaner where you're
Yeah,
like,
something like that.
yeah, something that one's a fun one too, but like way too tedious for me because like you're mopping up blood and then your mop gets full and then you have to like fill a bucket with the bloody mop, but then the bucket gets full and then you have to get another bucket. It's like I just let me shoot things with a big hose, like in Power Wash Simulator. That's the best game of all time. But
True.
second best game is Satisfactory. Um, and I will say, of all of the like simulation types, usually big factory sims, your industrial sims, I'm terrible at. Like Factorio, or even something like Sim City or city skylines, anything where you have to like get into the nitty gritty and like really figure out how to make all this work. I'm like, I don't know, I don't have the attention span for it, which I'm not someone who's like fried. Like I'm like TikTok. I don't have a 30-second attention span, but it's just like I'm not smart enough, I think, to figure it out. And there's a lot of reading. I don't really want to read. And that's what's great about Satisfactory is that it's also simple, or at least it's simple on the surface because you just land on a planet and then it's like, okay, mine iron. Okay, easy enough. Once you mine enough iron, you can automate that by having a big old miner on ore. Okay, I can do that. And then you can make a smelter that makes your iron ingots so you don't have to go back and manually craft all the ingots. That's great. And then, oh, wouldn't it be nice if you could just hook that up to some assemblers and then just have them pop out those iron rods and iron sheets that you need so much. And then from there, it's just a big snowball until you're making like nuclear paste and sending stuff up through a space elevator to repair a spaceship to get sent through warp speed to save the whole universe. Uh, yeah, it's a really really great game. It's one where I think everything is just so intuitive, where you don't have to like read the wiki to figure out how everything works because it's just like there's two outputs on every building for the most part. Orange means in, green means out. Hook up the green to the orange of another building, and bada bing, bada boom, you built a factory. And it's also fun to see all of your items move on a conveyor belt into other machines. And I've got to say, that's like the best thing ever. Is like once you're in that late game and like you built this like giant factory around your hub to the point where like you can't even see your hub anymore because it's just buried amongst all of your machines and conveyor belts that you've already built, and you can just like build a big lookout tower and just kind of look at all of the things that you've done, and you get to just watch your factory work in action, and it's just like that's super rewarding. It's really really great. And it feels earned because like no one's really telling you how to do this stuff. I mean, kind of. You do have this like AI lady, and no, not like that. She's just a computer lady, like GLaDOS or something. And she's just like, you're a stupid idiot. You're probably gonna die. But here's how an ore extractor works. Here's how you can extract fluid or natural gas. Here's like whatever. But she does it in a snide, sarcastic way, which is funny. And that's what I like. There's a little bit of humor to it. And what's also nice is that there's in the 1.0 release, there are these like alien technologies that you can harness. And once you start pick up enough of those like alien like eggs, and I don't know really what they are. One of them is just like the S that you draw in school. That's one of the alien technologies, and then one of them is called a Mercer sphere, which I'm like 99% sure they named after Matt Mercer because I guess they're just big roll 20 or what is it? Is it it's roll 20, right? Why am I
I think so.
blanking? Okay.
That sounds correct.
I'm like now I'm like psyching myself out where I'm like, is that the name of the podcast? Whatever. Matt Mercer from the roll 20 or whatever. The DM. And so it's just like they don't really take it too seriously. But then once you pick up enough of those things, then there's like this ancient alien AI that like starts communicating with the like big corpo AI that you're like working for. And it like, I'm not gonna lie, it gets weirdly introspective where you have like this ancient kind of organic AI communicating with this because you're working for like a giant like galactic corporation like sci-fi whatever, kind of like cyberpunk but funnier and not sex, whatever. and the and so there's like these like real like conversations that take place, and they all just take place in the background. It's just like you'll get little snippets where it'll be like, "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said, and like, how do you feel about this?" And then they're like respond, and then they talk, and like you can like hear both of those characters growing, and you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to like pick up those alien ores or anything like that. It's all completely optional. To complete the main story, you don't have to do any of that. But like I was picking up those things, A, because of the achievement, but B, because I was like genuinely like, these are really sweet moments between two robots that are communicating. And it's like unironically great science fiction. So if that interests you at all, I mean, I think the game is worth playing either way, at least trying, because, you know, it's not usually my type of game either, but like, you gotta give it a shot because if you know, go into it with an open mind, I think you might find something special here. So check out Satisfactory.
Yippee! All right. My number one did not come out this year, of course.
Of course.
I think I play games of current year. That's stupid. I'm
Sorry.
3 years late. Um, I started playing this game last year, but I don't think I fully finished it. So hopefully it wasn't on my list last year. I don't think it was. Um, Disco Elysium, another
Oh,
feature that we've done.
we did.
Um,
Yeah,
this
that.
game I think is perfect
Yeah,
because
that
I
game.
think you added it on your list last year because
Did I?
you brought it up. I
It
think
didn't.
we talked about it last year.
I don't think it came out last year. I think it came
No,
out
it came
like.
out in 2019.
Yeah, I'm like, why would I have brought it up last year?
We had some discussion about it
We talked
somewhere.
about it. I wonder if it
Yeah,
was like we were talking about like RPGs because I was talking about Baldur's Gate, and
probably.
then it was like, oh, I want to play Disco Elysium, and then
Yeah,
that kind of snowballed. But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. So got it late last year. Really dug into it this year. And then I think I've gone through it 3 times. I played it with my partner, and she really enjoyed it as well. So that was fun to watch someone else go through this crazy whatever this is. Um, yeah, I think this game is perfect. This is like one of my favorite games ever, if not my favorite game I've played, at least in recent memory. Everything about it is just fantastic. It's got the humor, it's got the deep introspection, the existentialism, the talk about like addiction in an incredibly accurate way, but at the same time, like the game will make you like laugh until you're like done with it. It's kind of insane how well written this game is. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to do game storytelling in a way that's genuine. Um, but they kind of nail it here. I don't know what it is with this, but like the writing is so clever and smart, and like there is a way that it could be viewed as like kind of Reddit written, but like it toes that line so well where it's like this is just really clever and well thought out and not like annoying. I know there are clones of this game that kind of try to do that and they don't necessarily work um, with this kind of witty writing style that they have going here, but it's just an incredible narrative to go through. The art style is fantastic. The soundtrack is amazing. All the characters are so well thought out, and there's so many different like paths you can kind of take through this thing. It goes as deep as you want to make it. You don't have to read every single thing, but if you're brain broken like I am and want to, it's there for you. I think the world building in it, I think, was the main highlight of just like how well written this game was. It literally lays out a historical context and everything for you to dig into, so you literally can learn everything it is about the current situation you're in and how to like deal with that and how it relates to everything else in the story. Um, I think like on the second and third playthrough, really picking up on like the idea of the pale, which is like this ultra weird thing in this universe where it's like it's a dead zone basically. I feel like it's an allegory for climate change, but like except they can physically see it getting closer to them, and it's like literally right there, and it destroys everything in its path. Just these all these like little things, just all combining into one thing is just insane. Um, Plus, you get your little buddy cop mystery thriller, which is always
Yeah.
just great. That's a great dynamic, and I always love that. But I don't know. It's an incredible game. It's one that everybody should at least try. It can be a little bit difficult to get into at first. I think there's a little bit of a curve to get into it. I was hooked immediately, but I am not the average person when it comes to like storytelling like this, especially when it comes to like the politics and world building of it being so fleshed out that it's like genuinely interesting to really dive into. Um, but I think we talked at length about this game in the feature, so
We did.
you can go listen to that. But yeah, this is an incredible experience. One that's like it doesn't feel like a very replayable game, but I do keep coming back to it every once in a while because it's brilliant. So um, yeah, I don't know if there's going to be anything else in this series, or I know the whole dev situation is kind of weird with this game, but we'll see. If not, it's a gem on its own, and it's really fantastic. So there it is.
Yes, it's a great like standalone thing. I don't know if I doubt anything else is gonna come from
No,
this.
yeah, it'll be a different universe or time or place if there is anything, but
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That is your number one. It is a very, very good game. We went very in depth on it in our
mhm.
feature of it, so I won't say much. And that it is just very, very good. One of the best RPGs I've ever played, which is
Real.
I don't play many of them, but it's better than Chrono Trigger.
I don't even know what that is.
You don't know what Chrono Trigger is?
No.
Never mind. Okay, I was joking about Disco Elysium being better than Chrono Trigger because I haven't played it, but there are going to be certain people online that are going to be very upset that you've never even heard of this game.
Wah, wah.
It's like it's a SNES game. It's like widely
Oh, I see.
regarded as like one of
Yeah,
the best. Yeah.
interesting. I'll talk about Chrono Trigger next year in my top 5 game section.
You're not going to play Chrono Trigger. It's a
Probably not.
JRPG.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that's all I need to say.
Yeah.
Um yeah, maybe I'll play it someday. But my number one, I feel like this completely makes sense, is Astrobot because I love Jeff Keighley.
Jeff Keighley shill.
I 100%
When Jeff Keighley
love Jeff
speaks, I
Keighley.
listen.
Absolutely. I don't know if I have agreed with him on like the last four. Well, I don't know. It Takes Two is probably the best game that came out that year. And Sekiro was. But I'm not a huge Elden Ring guy. I don't know. I really like Astrobot, but I'm also the type of person that really, really likes this type of 3D platformer with like collectibles and that thing. I was like you in racing games, me in 3D platformers. Grew up on Banjo Kazooie and Mario 64. Both of those very, very high up. I think Banjo Kazooie might be my favorite game of all time. So anytime there's a new 3D platformer in that vein, I'm always quick to hop on that. And Astrobot does not disappoint. It's a very technically competent 3D platformer. Um, at times, it feels like, okay, it's kind of baby's first 3D platformer, but then by the end of it, like there are some moments, some levels that'll give like experienced platformers like uh you know, it'll test your skills a little bit. And I do appreciate that. And there have been new speed running levels that I have not played yet because I am waiting for all of them to come out and they are still dropping. They've been dropping those for like 3 months and with no end in sight. They just keep dropping new levels, which I kind of love that Team Asabi is just like, I just want to keep making levels for this game because they love this little robot guy that they made. I just think that's kind of cute. Um, I will say I did bring this up originally, like when I finished the game and I talked about it on this show, not the list week show, but our regular programming. I do wish that the kind of like PlayStation branding was kind of toned down. It's this weird, like, it's all over the place, which is kind of like, why? Because even like Nintendo, they don't have like Nintendo on like all of the like buildings and all of the coins, and you aren't like trying to save a Nintendo Switch in Mario Odyssey or something. It's this very bizarre thing where like, and I don't even think it's necessarily PlayStation themselves that's making them do this, because other PlayStation originals aren't. They aren't like, you aren't walking around in God of War and then there's just like a PlayStation logo on Kratos' axe. It's just this weird thing that I think Team Masabi's like, I mean, it's a big celebration of PlayStation and like through all of the years it's been a thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that they released this game on the 30th anniversary of the original PlayStation. Um, but it does just kind of feel strange that there is so much PlayStation branding on it. But what I really like about the game is that, like, I mean, all of the callbacks and stuff to older games in the PlayStation library, I think, is very, very cool. And it isn't just like, I think when I was like worried, like, eh, when I think of like callbacks to like past things, I always kind of get like Disney blockers on where I'm like, oh, it's like a Star Wars thing where it's like, oh, you recognize this character, so we're going to throw it in this show, even though it doesn't make any sense. Or it's just like, we're going to show them on screen for 1 second, have a big instrumental thing, and then they just like aren't there anymore. And it was just there so that certain people on YouTube or Twitter will be like, oh, this character is from this episode of this show or this comic or this book. And you didn't know that? And that's why it's so cool that they're on screen for the first time. And I'm just like, get that out of here. And then it'll be like, we are celebrating the legacy of Star Wars. And it's just like the original characters get like a little mention. And then it's like, and Kylo Ren and Rey and Finn. And it's just like, okay, you just got here. You know, you are not the legacy. Like, I understand you are here, but it just seems like all of the branding is just new. And so when like Astrobot came out and I was hearing that there was all these references to old games, I'm like, okay, well, half of those are going to be from the PlayStation 5. It's just going to be every single PlayStation original from the PS5. And that's going to be like really gross because it's just going to be like this big advertising showcase for all of the things that you can get on this console. But, and this is something I'm going to be talking about later, most of the games that they reference are from the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Like, and it's not even really close. I think there's about like maybe 10 from the PlayStation 5. And I mean, I don't know. They were like making it pretty early into like PlayStation 5's life cycle or whatever. So there probably wasn't a lot of games for them to draw from, but I still think that that shows a lot of restraint because they could like show every single new PlayStation original, and they really don't. It's interesting because they really tended to like they got deep in their bag. Like I had to look up some of the things because I had never even like seen that character before, and it was like, oh yeah, this is from a Japan only game that like sold 2,000 copies that just like some dude at Team Asabi really liked and wanted to put in Astrobot, and I think that's really cool. Is introducing these kind of like old gems to a new audience that will probably never even heard of them. Games that maybe aren't like uh, they aren't getting the attention that they need because they were so like hidden, and now they're kind of getting propped up and put into the spotlight by this game. I think that's very very cool. And yeah, so it's a great platformer, a 3D platformer. I think it's heavily inspired by Mario Galaxy 2, but that's not a bad thing. I don't know why I'm ending all my sentences with an upward inflection, like I'm asking a question or something, but that's just how I'm going to talk forever, I think. Well, not there, but whatever. Anyways, play Astrobot. It's a great game. Just ignore all the PlayStation. Oh, it's going to be really hard to ignore the PlayStation branding because it's on every single coin, and you're trying to save a PlayStation 5. It's a weird choice. You have to overlook that because there's a really solid platform under all of that. But that brings me to my project that I've been working on. I'm going to unveil it here in the list.
Live,
Why?
live,
Oh, live. Yes, I'm
first world premiere.
world premiere of this little project that I've been working on slash getting the materials for, and that is my Astrobot playthrough, or I don't remember what I'm calling it. I need to pull up my spreadsheet because, of course, I made a spreadsheet because
Please
that's.
hold.
I'm calling it Astrobot's PlayStation Crash Course. So I am going to be playing every single game that Astrobot has a reference to, and I'm going to try as much as possible, some of which will be impossible for me to get, but I'm going to try as much as possible to keep them in physical releases. So throughout all of this next year, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play them all because there is 144 games. Well, 140 or 139. I don't know. Around there. So I won't be able to play them all, but also some of them I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on. Like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time playing MLB The Show, the original one for the PlayStation 2, because I do I need
Why
to
would you play
explain?
baseball?
Do I need to explain why I'm not going to play a lot of MLB The Show from 2004? Um, but yeah, I've been working on getting all of the games. I have not gotten all of them. Obviously, some of them have been pretty difficult to get. But I do have the first couple. First three, actually, are NES games. Uh, I know. I know what you're probably thinking. Why in the PlayStation Crash Course are there NES games? Which is a solid question. I have that same question to the people who made Astrobot. But for some reason, Ghosts and Goblins is the first game that. I'll be going chronologically as well. I should probably mention that. So, Ghosts and Goblins is the first game chronologically that came out in 1985 on the NES. Technically, it's an arcade game, but then was ported over to the NES and then was ported over to probably PlayStation at some point, which is why it's referenced. But it's a classic game. I don't think I'm going to be able to beat it. It's one of those games that is notoriously hard, which I guess you could say about any game on the NES because they were still using the arcade model of like game design that was designed to steal your quarters. But when you're doing it on a home system, it's not fun to lose all the time. But they hadn't figured that out yet. So we'll be doing Ghosts and Goblins on the NES. That'll be coming up first. I should probably note some asterisks. There aren't actually 139 separate entries that Astrobot references, but for some of them, I thought it would be fun to play the whole franchise. So I'm going to play every Ratchet and Clank game, every Yakuza game, every God of War game, every Silent Hill game. Some of these are not necessary at all. They may have only referenced Silent Hill 1, but this is kind of an excuse for me to play the old classics. So that's that. Um, yeah, so the NES games that we're going to be looking at for this next month or so is Ghosts and Goblins, the original Castlevania from '86, and then Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Those two games are not referenced in Astrobot, but Symphony of the Night is. And so I don't want to miss out on all the crucial, very crucial story that I'm sure is in the original Castlevania and Castlevania 3. I know that there was a lot of great stories being told on the NES. Most of them were like JRPGs, which I don't care about at all, but I will be playing some. Luckily, there's no Final Fantasy games, so
Yippee.
I won't want to blow my head off listening to some absolute dog shit. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be playing all sorts of games, some things that I have never even heard of, some things that are going to be borderline impossible to get. So, but I will be getting the hard ones eventually. I will have to track down a copy of Parappa the Rappa. That'll push me back $200 or something. But I already bought Silent Hill 2. That was before I knew that the remake was coming out. So
Oh, well.
thanks for that. That was $200. I went to a video game store here in Minneapolis and they don't have prices on anything. So I'm like, hey, how much for Silent Hill 2 and 3? And they're like, oh, okay, Silent Hill 2 is $200 and Silent Hill 3 is $250. I'm like, oh, never mind. I'll just get the second one.
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Silent Hill 3 is that I think it was originally made for PlayStation 2 and then it was ported over to Xbox, but the Xbox version is really bad. So it's one of those things where it's like the PlayStation 1 is in high demand because it's the best way to play it. So that's why it costs so much.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll have to deal with that. And that does mean that I'm going to have to get some of these PlayStation 1 games. I only have 7 of them, and there's like at least 30. So I'm going to work on that, but that's what we're going to be doing. Or not we, that's what I'm going to be doing this year. And I might include the spreadsheet in the description of the podcast. So if you want to play along, probably emulate them because it's going to be easier than what I'm doing. You should do that. So that's it. That's it for gaming. We had great lists this year. I think everyone will agree. Thank you.
All my
I,
stuff definitely came out this year too.
that's
So.
true. Mine too, except for Resident Evil 4.
Mhm.
But should we move on to shows?
Yeah, let's run through shows. Games
Okay.
took an hour and a half. I think shows can be
I
quite
think
brief.
so, because I don't have to talk about these. I watched one show that came out this year and one season of one show that came out this year. The rest of
Gotcha.
it's all
I
old.
I actually have all of them that came out this year besides one. So
Oh,
I
so
think
it's
I'm
the
more in tune with
inverse.
shows. Yes.
Oh, okay. So should I start this one since you started games?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, my show. I guess this did kind of come out this year. I watched Invincible this year. It's a great show starring J.K. Simmons. Well, it's not starring J.K. Simmons. It's starring Stephen Ewan. Is that how you pronounce it? I
I
think
think
that's
so.
it. Yeah, he plays Invincible. J.K. Simmons is the dad. Superhero show. It's the endless question: who would win in a fight, Homelander or Omni Man? It's a great discussion. It's probably Omni Man, if we're gonna be honest, because Omni Man is invincible.
That's the name of the show.
That's the name of the show, and yeah, they do that a lot. It has kind of the Barry thing, where actually the Barry thing is just like it just cuts to the theme song, and it's the
Hmm.
best ever. Invincible, like everyone, there's like a cold open, and then like as soon as someone's about to say Invincible, then it cuts to the title card. So it's kind of like that. It just like kind of comes out of nowhere and then is a thing. But I guess the second half of the second season came out this year, so I'm gonna count it.
That
Um,
counts.
Invincible is a great show. It's definitely like not as uh, good as The Boys, but The Boys is like smart political satire kind of baked into a superhero show with like really great acting and writing and uh a lot of dicks, which I like personally. uh which is everyone, I don't know if everyone gets upset, but I've been seeing a lot of things online from people upset that they couldn't show like tits. There was apparently a shot in the new season where like a lady flashes her tits to Homelander or something, and they like just did a close up on her face so you didn't see it. And everyone's like, wait, so you can show like a bunch of male nudity, but you can't see a lady flash her tits?
Oh, get over it.
Oh, get over it. I don't care. That lady that does that, by the way, is a pedophile in the show. So just want to throw that out there. Um, but yeah, Invincible. I didn't put The Boys on my list because I haven't seen the new season. I watched the rest of it this year though. It's very good. Invincible. It's kind of a standard superhero show with like the added element of it's really gory and it's animated, which is nice, and an all-star cast. Everyone is great in it. The voice actors are all very, very talented. J.K. Simmons is one of the best voice actors of our generation. He's been in this, and Kethrick Thorne. I know he's done other things. He was Cave Johnson in Portal, whatever. He's been in a lot of things, but I just like J.K. Simmons. So anytime he's in something, it gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. It's like the dad I never had. Check out Invincible. It might not be your thing, but it also might be your thing. So maybe give it a shot. And if it isn't, then just give up on it. It's fine. But Batman and Spider Man are in the most recent season, and that's pretty sick. So, and I love callbacks and references to existing IPs that I already like. So
Me too.
that's Invincible for me.
Great. I have the Vince Staples show at number 5.
Oh,
This was a nice treat. It's like 6 episodes. It's very short. Um, but I think this is most comparative to like Atlanta, like early seasons
mm,
Atlanta. Kind of delves in this I want to say like black absurdism um, that show kind of occupies. Um, it's really cool because like Vince is the main character and he plays himself,
mm,
but he's also put into situations that may or may not be real, and there's this like weird haziness of like this could have happened, but it also could be completely made up or both at the same time. Um, and that's pretty cool. There's some really funny episodes and cool situations that get thrown in there. I think just the absurdity of being like a famous artist but still living where he grew up, and like getting pulled over for a speeding ticket and being in jail and people recognize him and that's not always a great thing and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. A family cookout where you bring your girlfriend who's lighter skinned and then they have a whole thing about it. And then there's like a weird OJ tie-in at the end with someone who may or may not have been OJ and may or may not have existed at all. It's a very strange kind of thing.
Oh,
The bank robbery episode is really funny. That was like kind of the one that they were promoting the most.
mm,
Um, that's just a really good episode. Um, yeah, it's short, sweet, but if you liked Atlanta, you will enjoy this one. It definitely plays more into the absurd and kind of funny quality of that show. Um, they do Vince Staples and Donald Glover have very distinct styles too, so
yes.
they're definitely shown in different ways. Um, but I do kind of love this like absurdist realism that they're kind of delving in here. Um, but yeah, really nice. I think it just got picked up for its second season, so I'm sure that'll be coming out next year. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It pairs nicely with this album that came out this year too. I don't know why, but the themes like are kind of uh, they kind of tie together between the show and the music, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, check it out. It's pretty good.
Shout out Vince Staples. What a good old boy. My number four, and I swear not all my shows are superhero shows, but my number four is Batman Caped Crusader, the one show that I watched that came out this year. Uh, this is one I think I talked about the first episode when I watched it, and I was pretty positive on it. Uh, I really like the setting of it, bringing Batman back to the 20s, um, without the racism. I think that's the way you
That's
gotta do it.
key.
That's key. Um, it's like an idealistic view of the 20s where it's all the good and none of the bad. Well, some of the bad. There's like corruption and crime and stuff. But, people aren't like openly lynching people and like, I don't know, like beating women just because they're women and they're like their wives. It's like modern kind of sensibilities just taken back to a time where everyone wore suits and is like wearing trench coats and cool hats, which honestly I can get down with. Like it's pretty sweet. Kind of steampunk, but not like cringy Tumblr steampunk, like cool steampunk, I guess. And I think a big part of why I really like this show is it kind of really, I mean, it emphasizes the detective aspect of Batman a lot. Not a whole lot of like big, like fight scenes or action scenes. It's mostly a mystery show. And a lot of the supervillains and stuff have motives and things that are actually like understandable. And I think that's something that Bruce Timm does especially well. Because I also went ahead and I watched all of the Batman the animated series this year, which is something that he, I think, co-created and directed a bunch of episodes for. And then he, of course, created Caped Crusader. Um, and so I think it's really great having him back at the helm of a Batman project because he really understands the character and also really understands what makes the world so interesting. Where a lot of the bad guys aren't necessarily bad, but they are misunderstood. A lot like Crazy Frog or something. Everyone thought he was a
Crazy
crazy
frog.
guy, always on cocaine, riding around on an invisible motorcycle, but he really had some layers. You ever see that Christmas music video he did?
I love Crazy Frog. I've
Well,
seen all of his music videos.
of course, of course. Yes, but he was Santa Claus in that one, so it really shows that he has a
That's true.
giving nature. So very similar to Joker in a lot of ways, because Joker is a very serious guy, but he's also very funny. So there's a lot of layers to the Joker. Uh, yeah, but I think the Cape Crusader, I think it's a really great start. I really hope that it gets picked up for a second season. But with all of the production woes that were going on with this first season, I'd be kind of shocked if it did end up happening because like it was going to be on Max and then I guess Warner Brothers just decided we don't want to have a Batman show on our streaming service. Like one of the most recognizable superheroes of all time, we don't want to have that on our streaming service. We're just going to have it open to bid. And then Netflix, I think, like got it, but then like they didn't pay enough or something. And then Amazon had to swoop in. And so now it's on Prime. It's like way too confusing. Like, I don't understand. There's nothing Batman on Prime at all except for this one show. It's like so out of place. But the art style and everything, going back to that like Art Deco style is always great. And yeah, I just think that it's a really cool take on the character that I think is, I don't think it's necessarily gotten stale, but everybody knows all of the hallmarks of Batman. So to kind of like take it back and introduce it in a new setting, I think was a good choice. So shout out Cape Crusader and good show.
Neat. Number 4, I have Smiling Friends season 2,
Oh,
the second one.
I forgot that came out
Um,
this year.
it did.
Oh,
Um, very different than the first season. They definitely you can tell they got a bigger budget first off.
Yes.
um, Trying a whole bunch of different animation styles and things, but they also played into just expanding character stories and things a lot more. I don't know if the episodes are necessarily as rememberable as season one. I feel like season one had a lot of bangers. Um, this one was a
Yes.
little bit more subdued. There was some really good ones, but there was also some that were like, okay, this is solid. But it felt like this was a very transitionary season into like this might be a bigger budget like Hallmark show for Adult Swim going forward.
Yeah.
Um, which is cool, but it's also weird given how the show started and who makes the show.
Yes.
But it is still pretty great. I think if you like the first season, you'll enjoy the second season. I enjoyed Alan being involved a lot more. I think
Yeah.
that was a big highlight of this season because Alan is just so fun, um, and the boss had a lot of nice moments in this season.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say about it. It's good. It's funny. I enjoy it. Honestly, I haven't like rewatched any of the second season's episodes. Maybe I should. I feel like I go back to the first season a lot more. But
Yes.
um, yeah, very solid though.
Yeah, that's a good show. I forgot that it came out. That would probably be my number 5.
Okay.
Sorry, Invincible, you've been dethroned by
Wah,
Smiling
wah.
Friends. Yeah, yeah, very, very good. Not as good as season 1, but a lot of fun. And I like all of the guest animators and stuff.
True.
Always a fan when they bring in more YouTube people to be guest spots on the new Rick and Morty, which is what Smiling
Rigor
Friends is
mortis.
becoming. I really hope
Don't put
that
that into the air.
I'm putting it in. It's definitely happening. I'm sorry,
Yeah, it
everybody,
probably
to
is.
ruin everyone's fun, but Smiling Friends is going to be the new Rick and Morty. Sorry, but it's true. My number 3 is The Sopranos, a show that came out 20
Oh,
years
dude.
ago. But I watched all of it this year, and let me just say, what a good show.
That's why it's number three.
That's why it's number 3. Well, there's been a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff that I watched this year. And I think Sopranos is very good. I don't get necessarily the like best TV show of all time label that it gets. That this and The Wire. I'm like, I understand very, very good shows, but like best shows ever, like must watch television. I
I got to
guess.
rewatch The Wire. I feel like I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. I just remember it making me very angry the last season,
Yes.
which I know is the point, but I also think some of it was not the point. I think some of it was like, well, we got to have the good guys win, and the good
I just
guys are
like my good
obviously the
old
cops.
Doc boys.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like I think if the show focused more on the actual real people and not the cops, I would have actually
Yeah.
liked that a little bit more, but whatever. Sopranos is great. I just think I like everything that The Sopranos influenced more than the actual show. There are some definite like duds in like the second to the last season, and then the last season goes on way too long. And then has the most abrupt ending of all time, which I'm not going to talk about the ending. I think
Good.
the ending itself is pretty good. I'm going to be very vague so I don't spoil it, but I think the ending was very good. I understand why people don't like the ending, but I think it fits. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Um, just to because I know you haven't seen it, so I don't want to
Not
spoil
yet.
anything.
I should probably finish it.
Yeah, you probably should. It's very good. Obviously, it's my number 3 show. I like it even more than Smiling Friends and Batman Caped Crusader.
Those are
Uh,
big dogs.
I know. Yeah, but I just think like I know that like Vince Gilligan has said that like Walter White wouldn't exist without Tony Soprano. And I think that like the whole prestige TV like thing that we're in right now wouldn't have even necessarily happened if it wasn't for shows like The Sopranos and The Wire and what HBO was doing in the early 2000s. So, you know, you got to do a little bit of a tip of the cap for that because we would, like, I don't know. This is a lot of people say it's this like golden age of television. I don't know. I guess so. I think You Should Leave is on TV. So
It's
I
true.
have to say it's a golden age just based on that. But I think what I don't necessarily resonate with The Sopranos as much as I resonate with things like Breaking Bad or uh, anything else really, is that Tony Soprano is the same guy in season one as he is in season six. Tony Soprano does not grow. Tony Soprano does not change. He is still the same asshole who cheats on his wife throughout the entire thing. And it's like, Tony, why are you still doing this? Like, I don't understand. Do you not learn from your mistakes? He is constantly doing the same things that get him in trouble over and over and over again, and he's incapable of learning from his own actions. And I guess that's part of his character, but it's also wildly unrealistic. But this was a show in the early 2000s. People weren't watching this in order. They were catching one episode here and there. So, like, yes, there's overarching arcs and stories, but the characters can't really change all that much because, you know, people are sleepy. They just worked 12-hour days at a coal mine in 2002, and they want to come home and see that old Tony Soprano go up to his old mischief. And so you can't have Tony being like a good old family boy in season six, even if he was a sleazeball in season one. You can't actually have like a character arc like that because of the time that it was made. But nowadays, when people are watching shows all the way through, you can actually have that. And I think that, like, you know, is better. It's better character writing. So some things like that with The Sopranos are like, eh. And there's like some editing things feel especially dated. There's like a famous like crossfade that happens, I think in season four, where like Carmela is leaving AJ's school and then it's like a freeze frame and then like the exposure goes all the way up and then like it fades to white and then fades into the next scene. And like when that happened for the first time, I had never seen that before. I'm like, what was that? Who made that decision? That's not even like normal for the
Check this out.
time.
Check this out.
It was so weird. And I'm like, this people say this is the best show of all time, and that is the weirdest editing choice I've ever seen in anything ever. Uh, it's like, I don't know, whoever like edited the Linkin Park music videos from the time is like, guest editor for one scene. This is so weird. But yeah, shout out Chris, shout out Furio,
Christopher,
shout out my man Pussy.
were you?
Shout out
R.I.P.
RIP. Shout out Paulie, you know. Uh
Wally.
Paulie's the man, except oh my god, there's a scene in like season 3 with Paulie that makes my skin crawl every single time I think of it. It is the most okay, this isn't a major spoiler. Can I please say this?
Yes.
Okay.
I will forget it by the time I get to this.
Okay. There is a scene where Polly is over at Christopher's place, and this is like him and Adrian are like living together, whatever. And he's like there to collect because Christopher's not a maid guy. Or maybe he is, he's just working under Polly. I don't remember. But Polly is just like there, and Christopher's like getting the money. And then Paul like walks into Adrian's bedroom and then like starts sniffing her panties. And then Christopher catches him. And then like Chris is the bad guy for like flipping out. And he's like, well, Polly, he's a whatever. I forget what they call him, like a lieutenant. So you can't get mad at him for sniffing your like fiance's panties. And I'm like, that is so gross. Like, I can't imagine doing that in front of like her like boyfriend is crazy. And then like I don't know. They kind of gloss over it, but I'm like, that kind of paints Polly in a really bad light throughout the rest of the show. It's so crazy. Um, so yeah, shout out Polly. He's a real one. And oh, there's this guy. Oh, I don't want to go too much into details 'cause I don't want to spoil anything. But man, there's this guy who's gay and he can't be gay. And I'm not gonna say who it is, mainly because I don't remember his name. But he's secretly gay and it comes out that he's gay and everybody's like, "Oh, he's a gay guy. We should kill him." Because that's how Italians are, right?
Hey.
All Italians are like, "Oh, he's gay. He's probably sucking police cock. We need to."
Italians might be the gayest like species of human
Well, I guess they were very closeted back then.
coming from an Italian.
Yeah, shout out that guy. That's all the characters, I think. Shout out Carmela. Carmela's the best. I like Carmela.
Holding it down.
She uh, she gets the she really the whole time I'm like, break up with him, please.
Real
Please leave
Skylar
Tony.
White.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to talk about it because we're already going really late. But I rewatched Breaking Bad. Everyone that says Skylar White is annoying,
Oh
or
yeah.
like that
Yeah.
is the absolute worst
Horrible people.
opinion that like anyone could possibly have ever. I cannot believe that people legitimately think that.
Yeah.
Because I was like rewatching it. Season 5 of Breaking Bad is so unbelievably hard to watch in the first half
Mhm.
because Walter White is like so abusive. And then people are like, wow, why didn't Skylar just let him do that? I'm like, he is actively ruining everyone in his life. It's like the worst person on the planet. And Skylar's like depressed and suicidal. And just like, oh, shut up, bitch. It's like, Jesus, calm down. Carmela's cool though. She has a big ring.
Right.
She knows what she's in, and she just likes the cash, and she likes living in a big house, and she's
Respect.
Italian, and that's fun. Well, that's everyone in the show.
It is,
I don't
yeah.
know why I highlighted that with just her, but she has the voice, you know.
ZD.
I'll get the Majol. Uh,
It's on
shout
my
out.
list for next year. I just didn't have time to finish it this year.
It's a good show. Check it out if you want to. And let me know when you get to that edit. You'll know exactly
Yes.
what I'm talking
Oh, I
about.
I think it'll be blatantly
Oh,
obvious.
yes, it will. It'll stand out. I was like doing something. I don't remember. I think I was like putting together Legos or something. And then like there's a sound effect that comes with it too. That's like a loud screech. And I had like looked up and I'm like, what is happening? Did my
Perfect.
TV break? No, it's real. And fun fact, I saw an article that was like someone was interviewing the creator of the show like now, and they asked him about that. It was like, "What's up with that edit?" And he's like, "I don't remember doing that."
Oh,
It's like I've never seen that before in my life. I don't know why that's in the show.
if they had like an intern that just like got it in.
I love
Nobody knew
that.
about it.
I don't know how someone snuck that in because it's crazy. But
What a
yeah,
gem.
check out The Sopranos. It's the best show of all time, but it's number 3 on my list.
Exactly. I have the next best show of all time at number 3, fittingly, Three Body Problem, the
Oh,
newest Netflix sci-fi craze that kind of blew up when it first came out. It died pretty quickly,
I've never heard
but
of
there
it.
was definitely a splash when it came out. Um, it's a sci-fi. I think it's based off of a series of books. I might be lying on that. I think it's at least based off of like a novel or something. Um, it's a sci-fi thing. It takes place in good old London in I think 2019. Um, it's based off of it's kind of it's an alien show. It dives into it pretty quickly.
Oh,
Um, I did enjoy it quite a bit. It almost reads as like a lower budget kind of sci-fi one where there's a
mm.
little bit of cheese in there, and I kind of enjoy that. Um, it has like this weird time travel thing where like we're in like 1960s China for a while, and then we're back in
Oh,
England, and then we're all over the place. Um, it's interesting because the show opens with like China in Cultural Revolution times,
Oh,
which,
sure.
as you can imagine, is not displayed well
Well,
in a
yeah,
Western show. It's actually like more accurate than I thought they would make it. It's just it went a little over the top, which is to be expected with that kind of stuff. It
sure.
was kind of a brutal and you know, pushing forward moment for a civilization that is rapidly industrializing. But they definitely played it up a little bit. There was also some things that just like did not line up with China's ethos at that time, like building a gigantic satellite to cast into space, which is the main contact for the aliens that come up in the show. I don't
Oh,
know why the Chinese government would do that. I guess it was the 60s, so Mao died, so everything was kind of on the table.
that's
But
true.
I digress. It's a cool show. It plays a lot with like there's like a virtual reality headset that like puts you in a simulation where you have to get past you have to like solve a riddle, and it's like it's like they're playing a roguelike, but you're in the game in real life. It's super advanced VR tech.
Oh,
Um and they contact these aliens, and then there's this whole quandary of like these aliens will come here in, I think, like 300 or 400 years. um and surprisingly, everybody was like, "Oh my god, we have to stop this." And I was as surprised there was nobody that was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be dead by then. I don't care." Everybody cared so much about this thing coming in 400 years that like entire government shut down, and there
oh,
were agencies created that were like poured every single penny into like trying to stop this thing, and all of our main characters, which are like super smart scientists and business people, all came together to do it.
that's
It's an interesting concept.
unrealistic.
It's a fascinating show. I'm excited for season two. I wasn't fully bought into it at first. I think there was a lot of issues with character writing, and I just was not interested in a lot of the characters. But I think it's got a good footing by the end of the season. So
Sure.
uh, I'm excited to see where it goes in season two. You can definitely tell they kind of read it as like, okay, Netflix gave us a one season deal, so we kind of have to do
Mm,
something to close it decently, but
yeah,
we also need to set up the second season. But when it comes to sci-fi, it's not bad. I think it's cheesy fun with a couple of serious moments. The world building isn't too incredible. It definitely reads more Marvel movie setup of the world, where
sure.
everything is just like, I have this super soldier agent who's doing all this behind the scenes of all these dummy governments that don't know what they're doing. Um, but it's fun. I enjoy it. So check it out if you're into sci-fi. I think there's like 10 episodes. It's not the longest watch in the world.
Oh, I love sci-fi, but I did look up the creators of this show, and I assume you know this, but it was co-created by Benioff and Weiss, the infamous creators of Game of Thrones,
Oh, interesting. I
who
did not know that.
yeah, who famously ruined the show once they ran out of source material. So,
Awesome.
if it's based
So
on
if the book
books,
runs out of source material, we're screwed.
yes, that's what I'm saying. But if they're
Good to know.
basing it on a book right now, should be great. And I do see there's a couple actors from Game of Thrones, so that
That
makes
would make
sense.
sense. I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I'm not sure if there's any parallels in terms of storytelling.
I doubt it, just
I
based
doubt it
on
too.
what
But
you've told me. But
yeah.
yeah, interesting, interesting. I think I vaguely remember this being a thing because the main chick looks like Ana de Armas. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing that poster and I'm like, oh, that's Ana de Armas. She's in a new show. And then it isn't her. So sorry, Ana de Armas, for defaming you. I don't, I don't know. She's doing well. Anyways, my number two show of the year is True Detective Season 1, which came out 10 years ago or something like that. Whatever. I don't watch TV that much. But I decided, hey, you know what? Let's just throw on some True Detective. Everyone's been going crazy. Mainly, I watched it because I saw that the new season was coming out and it was Jodie Foster, and I do love me some Jodie Foster. And then I watched True Detective Season 1, and then I said, actually, I don't want to watch anything else in this show, mainly because I think it's an anthology series, kind of like Fargo or something like that, where every season is a different time, place, different
Nobody talks about the
characters.
other seasons.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I've heard decent things about season 3. That one stars Mahershala Ali, which is
Fun.
intriguing because he doesn't do that much. So I don't know. And then Jodie Foster, obviously. But I think like season 4, like I was kind of like, oh, I might check it out. And then it was like, season 4 has a lot of ties to season 1. And it's like, okay, they're trying to like, oh, bring back things you remember from season 1. Remember the good
Woo.
show? Never mind. But season 1 is great. I don't know. I feel like I should like it a lot more because I'm a white guy and Matthew McConaughey is in it and he's doing the Matthew McConaughey thing.
Hell yeah.
And I should be like, this is the best show I've ever seen in my life because it's like Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are like riding through the swamps of Louisiana or whatever. And then he's just like, man, life sucks. And Woody Harrelson's like, oh, shut up. I like fucking big titty goth GFs. Shut up. I like drinking. And Matthew McConaughey's like, I looked in the mirror and I don't even recognize the person I saw on the other side. Woody Harrelson's like, yo, Alexandra Daddario, want to come over to my place and smash in front of my 4-year-old kid? It's like the best show of all time if you're like a frat guy, I guess.
A
Uh,
great dynamic.
it's a great dynamic. And it is like weird. I feel like Matthew McConaughey is like supposed to be the red herring, where it's like, this guy is so depressed and so nihilistic. Um, and like, he's an atheist, which is like, okay, red flag. He's probably a serial killer. Every atheist I know at least has some
It's
sort of
true.
homicidal tendencies. Um, and so I was like, okay, well, he's probably the killer, but it isn't really that. Honestly, I don't really remember who the killer is. I feel like the killer was like kind of unconsequential. Like it was like a ring. I don't, honestly, I don't really remember much of the story. I just remember Matthew McConaughey being really sad and Woody Harrelson cheating on his wife all the time with Alexandra Daddario, which is pretty sick. And given the chance, I probably would follow in his footsteps, mainly because Woody Harrelson seems like a fun guy. He was in
Great.
Cheers, and
The best show.
absolutely, maybe he could give me an in with Ted Danson. That's kind of that's kind of why I put this show at number 2. I'm trying to get closer to Ted Danson in some way because I need to ask him what it was like being a little Danson man in the Tim and Eric show, the Terry Green Machine episode, which is the best episode
A
of
classic.
television ever. So yeah, I'm just trying to get there somehow. But yeah, I do really, really like this show. It's an interesting like framing device too, where it's like we're interviewing the characters like 10 years after this happened, and it's like internal affairs people. And so it's like, hey, we think that maybe something was fishy in this investigation. So we're like kind of talking to these 2 cops that were involved. And so like, but they aren't like together anymore. They aren't partners anymore. And so like we're getting both accounts of the story kind of simultaneously. And those kind of differ because Matthew McConaughey is still kind of, well, not kind of, he's still an asshole. And he's basically like drinking an entire 12 pack while this interview is going on. So he's getting like progressively drunker and like more weirdly philosophical. He has a lot of like weird idioms that he just says all the time. It's like he read one book by Confucius and is like, I'm gonna make this my whole personality and everyone's gonna hate me, but I don't care. I'm gonna come off super deep and introspective. And yeah, that's why I think Woody Harrelson seems like a chill guy. He's like super Christian, so probably it's never killed anybody in his whole life.
Christians
Um,
don't do that ever.
no, Christians famously have never killed anybody.
It's true.
Ever. Never, ever. So, anyways, check out True Detective Season 1. It's a good show. It's probably the best show of all time, but it's my number 2 show of the year.
Great. My number 2 spot goes to a little show called The Joe Pera Show.
Oh,
Yes.
that's my favorite show.
exactly. We got the privilege to watch that this year. I think it started
Absolutely.
when you came to town to go see him
Are you
live,
sure? Yes.
which was fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
he's great.
but yeah, this show is phenomenal. I love it. Something about just like these small things in life being the highlight of a show is
Oh yeah.
just it's so cozy. It's so fantastic. The characters are so fun. Um, his level of humor is just really, really great. It's simultaneously something that's easy to watch, but it does get into deeper topics as you go
Hmm.
on. But it still approaches them with the same grace and everything that it always does for like the first season, where it is a little bit more of just like goofy little vignettes.
Yeah.
But there is a broader thing that he kind of um, expands into as the show goes on.
Hmm.
I don't know. He's just such a great boy.
Yes.
It's just such a great comfort show, but it hits you in the feels at times,
Hmm.
and it's just hilarious and relatable as a little Midwest boy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
I think that I think it is my favorite show of all time. I think
Yeah, it's great.
it's so good. If it didn't get canceled, man, that would have been like that's like devastating. I wish I didn't
Mhm.
watch it. That's it's my favorite show of all time, but I wish I've never seen it because it's just too sad that it got canceled. So hopefully Warner Brothers comes to their senses and brings it back, but I doubt it. Maybe Luigi Manzagatti or whatever his name is should shoot David
Manicotti.
Zaslav.
He's next.
He's next.
It's got to be Waluigi next. I don't
Oh, can't be
think Luigi
Luigi.
did his service to the public.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That'll be like a different, like a sweatier, greasier Italian. Is that kind
Yeah,
of the thing?
there's different brands of Italian. We gotta
Okay.
just get a different one.
Speaking of Italian, my number one show of the year is The Bear season 3.
Hey, oh, I forgot that came out this year. Whoops. Oh well.
Whoops. Uh, yeah. So this is a show that is maybe divisive, or a season that is
Mhm.
divisive. Many people did not like it as much as the other seasons, but I think that those people are cowards and fools because I think that this season was phenomenal. A little bit like different. I'm just talking to people that I know who really like this show. It seems like some people were like they didn't really think that it like Carmi would be like, why is he so like obsessed with getting a star? It's like he's ruining all of his relationships just to get this Michelin star. And I'm like, I don't know if you've seen the show.
Yeah, have you watched the show before?
Because like that's the entire first season is taking this like homey comfort food place and turning it into like a legitimate restaurant, and that's what season 2 is, and now it's just there. And like the signs were all there that like he was going to like let this consume him, and I think that's what a big part of the finale of season 2 was. So I think it's completely in his character to completely dive in and be obsessed. And I just think that it was visually stunning, one of the best like written shows I've seen in a very very long time. It's one of those shows that is just it continues to get better and better and better. And Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and anytime you can get Jamie Lee Curtis in something, it's a big plus in my book. So big win for the Bear season 3. Shout out Bears everywhere and Twinks.
We don't discriminate.
Absolutely not.
Um, yeah, I forgot that the Bear season 3 came out this year. So I'm like living in your number one spot. So just know that it's seen and I agree. Um,
Okay.
it would
You're
probably be
living
number
in.
2 for
Okay.
me, or
That's
maybe I don't
fair.
know. It'd be high. I think it was really great. The character stories were the birthing episode
Oh
of
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, my number one is Fallout.
Oh, I
This
forgot
show's
that.
so fun.
I,
Exactly. So
dang
we're
it.
just swapping.
I shouldn't have
we
put
did a
Sopranos in here.
we did a great job fielding the correct shows for this list.
I
It's
guess
fine.
so.
We're busy. It's holiday season.
Yeah.
Got a postal worker and a graphic designer. It's the busiest time of the year.
Yeah, it is. It's
Um,
okay.
yeah. So Fallout. I think this is just definitely the most entertaining show this year. It it just really scratched an itch. I think it kind of like out Bethesda with like the way they portrayed this series.
Yeah.
I think Bethesda gets in its way too many times, and this show just like really let the weird freak funny flag fly with this weird post-apocalyptic mishmash 50s whatever that this series is. um I think they really did it justice with this. I also love how it does have this weird kind of, I don't want to say B movie quality, but it has the kind of cheaper TV show quality to it, where not everything is super buttoned up and serious.
Yeah.
Um, and I just really like that about it. I think it does the series well. It doesn't like pander to fans too much by including this and being like, look at this. It doesn't
Right.
do any of that stuff. I think like Fallout as a basis, it just sets you up to have so many incredible moments with just like all the vaults you could explore, the different weird people you find, um, all this kind of stuff. So I think it really like envisioned what this series was to me, and I think it really added a, an element that was needed, honestly, because I feel like the storytelling of Fallout could have always been better. I think it fell off, especially with 76 as well, since there was
Yes.
just dead people you were following around for the whole game. Um, it inspired me to play through Fallout 3 because my girlfriend never had played a Fallout game. So we tried Fallout 3. The show is better than Fallout 3. I think Fallout 3 is just too gray. I don't know what's
Yeah, it
going on with
is.
that
It
game.
is.
Um,
But Liam
but
Neeson's
yeah,
in it.
exactly. I will say Walton Goggins just kills it.
Oh
He
yeah, he's the
makes this
best.
show. He is so good as this cowboy
Yes.
ghoul. So very excited for the second season. It will be a New Vegas themed season, which I'm so excited for because
Yes.
that should bang if they do it correctly.
We'll see.
But yeah, really good video game adaptation. It was kind of
Yeah.
handed to them on a silver platter. I feel like it'd be hard to mess up Fallout because
Well, Bethesda did it.
it's got such a personality to it. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. Video game adaptations are very, very hit and miss.
they really are.
Didn't think you could mess up a Mario movie,
Yeah,
and then they made it two real greasy Italian plumbers, and Yoshi's a real dinosaur, and a Goomba's a big dragon. It's like, I don't know.
which I approve of. I think it was fun.
I don't think it was fun. Oh, but with that being said, it's movie time. This is the longest podcast that we've ever
Oh
done.
yeah, we can zoom. I mean, on mine at least, I can
Okay,
zoom.
perfect.
I
Uh,
feel like we've talked about every single one of the movies that we'll be talking about here. So
yes, I definitely have. So I won't be going super in
I
depth.
think I only have one that we haven't talked about. So
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead and start us off. What's your number 5 film?
my number five. This is kind of cheating because I could not think of anything else.
Money
But I
Plane?
rewatched Robots this year for the first time in like 15 years. Um,
I'll count it.
yeah, only because it was leaving the streaming service like that next week, and I wanted to just get a follow up on it and see. It still
It's a
bangs.
banger
It's pretty
movie.
great. Like it stood the test of time quite well. Um, I don't know. I love the sentiment of it. I love the just telling the story of like how the underclass is just constantly bullied by big corporations and like physically making them robots that break and are full of old parts and stuff. It's just genius and it's hilarious. It's a really great movie.
Yes.
Um, the ending, it has the classic 2000s where every movie has to end in a song, but it bangs. It's great.
Is it
Um,
Shooting Star? Wait, what is it?
oh
It's not the Earth, Wind, and Fire.
no, it's is it James Brown?
Oh, yeah, it's James Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Robot.
fantastic though. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was just a rewatch that I really enjoyed.
I don't blame you. Robots is great. Yeah. So the movies that came out this year, everyone keeps insisting that it's a great movie or year for movies. I think I only saw a handful came out this year because the rest of it didn't really grab me. So all of my movies did come out this year, but I'm a little bit unimpressed with this year as a
Okay.
whole. Just want to get that out there. My number 5 is Long Legs. I'm never going to watch this movie again because it disturbed me to my core when it came out. I think that this movie, even though it was made by a very religious man, I think it was made by the devil himself. And maybe that's the point. Kind of like, what's his face? I can't think of his name, but the guy who wrote The Exorcist being like, I'm a super Christian guy and I made this super evil work. He didn't, whatever. That's a whole different thing. But Longlegs is a great, great film. Very similar to another movie I watched this year, Silence of the Lambs. Not as good as Silence of the Lambs, of course, but definitely toying with some ideas that are great. Has that very creepy Oz Perkins like horror thing where it's that thing I was talking about with Resident Evil. Show very little. You don't see Nick Cage as long legs until like halfway through the movie. And then like he's like so creepy. And then he like bashes his own brains out. And it's just like so shocking. And then there's just so much devil imagery. It's a very satanic film. So, as a good Christian boy who has never murdered anyone, let me just say,
On record.
on record, but and it is because I am Christian that I've never murdered anybody. And so Longlegs gets the number 5 just because there's too many devil mentions, and that
Too
just makes me uncomfortable.
scary.
It makes me uncomfortable as a Christian to see depictions of Satan because it is
Hmm.
too scary for me. It's too
You're getting me
real.
so confused if this is the first time you're seeing our podcast.
It's too scary because it's a real thing. The devil is a real guy, and he pokes and prods at us humans from the mortal realm. And so just to have that depicted on screen, it's a little
Quite
troubling.
spooky.
It's quite spooky. So that's Longlegs. Top 5. It's 5. It's very good.
Neat. What do I have it for? I have Blue Velvet, David Lynch.
Oh,
Um,
going way back.
I was like looking backwards, like where do I put Blue Velvet? Um, I don't know if I'd call it an enjoyable experience of a movie. I think it
It's
is
pretty
quite
good.
good, but it's definitely uncomfortable in the most Lynch way possible.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I don't know really what to say about it that we didn't cover in the feature. And I tried to block some of this movie out, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think the just he's so good at creating a mood and a tone and then just like breaking it simultaneously. There's just so many like visceral, strange moments in this movie where I'm just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Um, I love that they're like in high school and like Kyle MacLachlan has like this big car and actually is he's out of a high school. He's like got a weird age gap thing
Yeah.
going, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
it's a strange movie. I think it is pretty good. I don't like that they made Pete a bad guy. I think Pete for forever should just be like a nice chill dude that likes fishing.
Yeah,
That was kind of a uncomfortable. That was the most uncomfortable part of the movie for me, honestly.
you,
Um,
you need to watch Eraserhead.
I will. I will. It's on the list.
Okay.
I think we're gonna tackle Mulholland Drive next.
Oh, geez.
So
I think you should go to Eraserhead.
you want me to do Eraserhead first?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
so. I think
noted.
that like Mulholland Drive goes completely off the rails, but I think Eraserhead is like easier to grasp. So maybe
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe you'd like Mulholland Drive more because you like that kind of weird avant-garde shit.
I really do. I think that's just how our household is. I feel like Eraserhead is going to ruin the vibes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
there's constant noise. Remember that
yeah.
one scene in Twin Peaks 3 where there's like a car accident? Or no,
Oh, yeah.
there's like
That
the
scene is,
ring and then there's just
yes, that
constant
scene is
horns.
incredible. Yeah.
That's the entire thing, Eraserhead. It is just constant noise while there's dialogue going on. It is the
I feel like
most
that's one I have to
frustrating
watch on
thing.
my own when I have like headphones on so I can truly immerse myself.
I don't know. I watched it on a sound bar and it like I don't know. It like messed with me. I don't know.
Interesting.
Ah,
But yeah, I have Blue Velvet. I don't think when it comes to Lynch, it's the bottom of my Lynch kind of tiers system so far. But
well,
I think it's still pretty good.
yeah. I don't know. It's not worse than Dune. I'll tell you that much.
I
Um,
would imagine.
But speaking of, my number 4 is Dune Part 2.
Oh,
It's funny how that worked out. Yeah, Dune Part 2. Everything from here on out is either 4.5 stars or above. I really, really liked Dune Part 2. A great little closer to the Dune story, that the Denis Villeneuve version. I think I mentioned this last week. Did I talk about Prisoners last week? Whatever.
uh,
It was
we didn't
one
do
of
it.
the weeks.
Wait, last podcast, yeah.
Last podcast, I talked about Prisoners and talking about Denis Villeneuve there, um, where I'm just like, I'm so grateful, you know? I do genuinely think that Denis Villeneuve will go down as one of the best filmmakers of all time because his portfolio thus far has been pretty much nothing but phenomenal. Unless he really like screws up over the next 10 years or so, like I can't imagine a world where we aren't going to be remembering him in like the same way that we're going to remember like Orson Welles and Scorsese. Like I know that this maybe sounds like sacrilegious right now, which is funny because I'm talking about Dune, which is a lot of religious overtones.
Right.
But I don't know. I like he's definitely the king of sci-fi right now. Might be one of the best sci-fi writer directors of all time. I can't think of a better one. I think most people would say either James Cameron or Ridley Scott. Both of those two guys are flopping right now. I don't think anyone likes James Cameron since he was like, I'm going to be the CEO of an AI filmmaking thing. And
Great
everyone's
move.
like, oh, James, why would you do that? He had so much goodwill. Like everybody liked James Cameron except for me. And now everyone's on my train. I'm like, get off. I was here first.
I'm supposed to be the hater.
Yeah, I'm in the engine room. Y'all can get back on the caboose. I've been on this train for 10 years. And Ridley Scott, I don't think I even need to really say anything about his whole fall off. First Napoleon and then Gladiator 2. I mean, come on.
Come
I don't know. Was Ridley Scott ever that good? Post down in the comments if I'm crazy for saying that Ridley Scott sucks. But yeah, I think he's the Denis is one of the best. And I think Dune Part 2 is really, really great. I don't know if I have like a whole lot more to say. I did a whole Dune week when this movie came out where I watched David Lynch Dune and then Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary, and then I watched Dune Part 2. So if you want to go back through the archives and find that one, I'm sure it won't be too hard to find. But it is very, very good. Very good performances all around, even from Timothy Chalamet, who I'm not too fond of, but I think he did pretty good in this film. And I think my only complaint is that Duncan Idaho is not in it. And I just think that that is the funniest name to be in a sci-fi thing ever.
It is pretty funny.
Duncan Idaho. Everyone has
Duncan,
like
Idaho.
everyone has like Arab names because Frank Herbert or is it Frank Herbert? I don't know why like the names are like tripping me up. I'm like I'm pretty sure that's the guy who wrote Dune. Am I booling? Do you know
No
who
idea.
wrote Dune? No,
No idea.
I think
It
it's
sounds right if I'm envisioning a cover of it, but
uh Dune book. Frank Herbert. Yeah,
Frank CD.
Frank Ziti. Frank Ziti, well, that doesn't make any sense. I would like give him a Middle Eastern name, but that just seems offensive. Um, so Frank Herbert was like, I don't know, he was like super Muslim, but he's a white guy. I don't know. He was just like super into it. So everybody has like Middle Eastern or Arab names, and then there's Duncan, Idaho. And it's just like, why would you give him that name? Idaho's not even a state. Like, why would that be a last name? I don't know. But check out Dune 2 if you haven't. It's one of those that I think kind of snuck under the radar this year, but pretty good film.
Yeah, I didn't see it for some reason. I'll get to it.
There's a good
I
sword
like the
fight
first
in
one
it.
a lot. I do love some sword fighting.
And there's lasers and stuff, which I know you really like. And sand. So there's a lot of
Oh,
sand and desert stuff in
speaking of sand and lasers and desert, my number three is House,
it.
the Japanese horror movie
That's
from
a
what was
great
it, the
movie.
70s.
Yeah,
It's
77, I
it's
think.
it's a blast.
It's great.
This is another one that we watched when you came to visit for
Yeah.
Joseph Pera.
Yes.
Um, this was just a blast all the way through.
I'm
Like,
glad you
I
like
don't
it.
care. It was short, it was sweet, but like, just what a phenomenal like piece of art. I don't know what to say about it. It's got like the weird. It's definitely Japanese. It's got
Oh,
the
yeah.
weird kind of cheesy horror movie aesthetic going for it, but like everything just kind of lands. Just like the
Yes.
absurdity of it is great. Um, the ending of it is just the most insane thing I've seen in a long time. Um, yeah, with these, it's like these movies I've seen. Like this was like a year ago, but I vividly remember that ending
Oh,
sequence, and
absolutely.
it's just that stuck with me. It it was a
I
fantastic
bet.
experience. I also love the guy that's just like randomly selling melons or
Oh,
whatever on
he's
the
the
side of the
best.
road. He's great. Um, but yeah, House. I forgot I watched it, and then I remembered. I'm like, ooh, this has to be on my list.
That's a
So
great movie.
that's my number three.
I'm glad that made your list. I didn't know that you liked it that much.
It was great.
I just recently got the Criterion version of that.
Ooh,
So, yeah, that's cool. I love House.
me too.
My number three, this is a movie about a big house, is Sing
Ooh.
Sing, a prison film about uh, a play, kind of. Yeah, so I talked about this when it came out. I'm not going to go super in depth because this is already a pretty long podcast. But yeah, it's a great. I almost said great little story. I don't know why I keep saying that. It sounds demeaning, and I swear if I say great little, I'm not trying to be demeaning, but it's just something that's snuck into my vernacular. So sorry, I don't mean to be angry, but Sing Sing is great. A little, see, there it goes again. A great little story about uh, a bunch of prisoners that have been, kept down by the system, learning to kind of, oh, geez, uh, rehabilitate themselves through acting, express their emotions in a positive and meaningful way, and in a world that very much encourages them to do the opposite. So it's a very, very touching story. A lot of the actors in the film are playing themselves. I don't know exactly how all that worked if they are in prison, but I guess they somehow got some sort of leave or something to be in this movie. Some of them were released around parole or something, so they were able to get in there pretty easily. But yeah, I just think it's pretty like inspirational in a lot of ways. Just the whole production of it, and yeah, I think it's just really really great. I don't know if a whole lot of people saw it. Like I know I joked about Dune 2 flying under the radar, but I do kind of think that Sing Sing fell under the radar because it had a very limited release, and I don't even know if it's on digital right now. It probably is, but like renting, I don't know. If you can find it, you should watch it because it's a great film. Sing Sing,
Sing song.
Sing Song.
Okay, this one's coming out of you don't know I've seen this yet. We might have to do something on it later, but
Okay.
um just watched it this last weekend. Solaris is number two.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. um yeah, I think Tarkovsky binge is happening,
Oh no.
uh underway. This is the second film that I've seen from him. I don't remember what years this came out. I think this came out before Stalker. It's like his second
Yeah,
movie.
I think so.
Um I think this one is more widely regarded. I think
Oh,
it came out in '72. I feel like it's more popular, at least.
really?
This is a sci-fi movie
I
that
love
is based off
sci-fi.
of a film again. Um, it's sci-fi in a Tarkovsky way, where it's like mostly there just to, make the plot make sense, but it's not really. It's more about human condition and stuff, as you would expect from him.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
familiar.
yeah. Uh, he it reads as a very different movie. I think it's a lot more accessible than Stalker, which I mean we've done a whole episode on that.
We did.
It's definitely more linear. There's definitely some strange things still. There's a car sequence where they're like, it's set in the future. It doesn't really explain that to you, but there's a car sequence where there's a self-driving car and it's taking him to this launch pad so he can go into space. It's like a 6 minute sequence of like just black and white cars driving and weird electric like noises, which I think was fun. It's clearly like cars from the 70s too, like just driving in Tokyo, but
Oh.
it's like electric car noises, which is funny. I think this movie had like a ridiculously low budget, like less than $1 million. So I think they were just trying to play with as much practical things as they could.
Mm.
Um, I think with Tarkovsky, it's like the magic is in the camera work and the storytelling. It's not really in the um, actual effects of things. So I don't really care about that. But the premise is basically there's this alien planet that has like a gigantic ocean on it, the Solaris Ocean, that makes people kind of hallucinate and see things. So we have our good old friend, I forgot his name already. It's a long podcast. Um, Americanized man who wears a mesh t-shirt and leather vest into space because he's great. Um, Goes into space to check on these three scientists that are there that have been having issues because the Solaris planet object thing has been messing with their brains, and it makes people see things. So he gets there and he immediately sees his dead wife, and the movie kind of basically goes from there as it is like kind of a um, it's she's not a human. She is this thing made out of not atoms, but some other weird thing that they uh, mention. Um, but it becomes more human as the movie goes on, and then the ethical and strange quandaries of expansion into space and memory and grief and all these things kind of come in, and it's really fantastic. It's about the same length as Stalker, so almost 3 hours. It definitely feels not. It felt long, but it feels a lot more linear than Stalker did. I think it's more of a traditional storytelling way.
Okay.
There's still some really beautiful camera work and symbolism going on. It's really fantastic. I think it's a good entry point. So you might be into something like that more than Stalker. I think it's a little more grounded.
Okay.
um, I'm not going to get into it too much because that would involve talking about the spoilers of the movie. But I will say, like the library sequence at the end of the movie when all three of the people and his wife are in that the gigantic library, and the way that scene goes is just absolutely brilliant. That's where the magic of this movie like really came out to me. So really fantastic. I think it's definitely below Stalker for me, but it's still like near perfect in my opinion. So Solaris.
Solaris. Are there any sequences where people just wax about philosophical quandaries?
There are a couple. I don't think
Okay.
it's as heavy-handed as Stalker
Okay.
because everything is based in the space station that they're doing, so it very much pertains to that
Mm.
space station. But
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'll check it out and maybe we'll do a feature on it in
you got
January.
3 hours to kill.
I definitely don't right now, but maybe after Christmas. Maybe in January I'll have some days off, so sounds fine to me. I'm seeing a lot of things comparing it to 2001.
Yes, I should probably watch 2001 and
Which
see.
is,
I think it's probably
you'd
interesting
probably
to
like
see
it.
like I probably would. I think it'd be interesting to see like because I think this movie was kind of made in response to that. So interesting to see how the West does it versus how Tarkovsky does it, which is
Yeah, because I think 2001.
basically on the human condition and not on the actual activity of whatever they're doing.
Yes, yeah, 2001 is I think it's late 60s, so yeah, it came out
Yeah.
before and yeah, not my favorite Kubrick, but it's Scorsese's top four, so it's probably the best movie of
Okay.
all time. And
I'll give it a
I
shot
just don't get
eventually.
it.
Yeah.
There's like four parts. It's like split up into four parts. The second part, in my opinion, is completely worthless, and I hate every single second of it. And the fourth part is okay, and then the third and first part are pretty good. So it's
Interesting.
to me, it's like a mid movie. But I know that
Okay.
that is like absolutely, I cannot get away with saying that on a
You've
podcast.
gotten away with a lot on this podcast, so
That's true. That's true. I love Kubrick, but that is like low tier Kubrick for me.
okay. Okay.
But whatever. Whatever. My number two. This is a 5-star movie that I have at number two, and the one that's beating it is not a 5-star movie. So I
Interesting.
don't care what anyone says about this. I'm going to shoot you in the face. Number two is The Wild Robot, the DreamWorks film. Uh,
I need to watch it.
it's an absolute slapper. I'll come out and say it. Every once in a while, DreamWorks comes back and it's like, "Yo, we actually make good movies." I was like, "Oh, I thought you made Trolls," and they're like, "No, we also do
Oh,
that.
Stewart.
We also do Trolls movies. We're gonna make 5 more Trolls movies in between now and the next time we make a great movie." But
I'd rather have them do that if it keeps them in business.
that's true. That is a good point. And if we keep getting projects like the Wild Robot or that Puss in Boots movie from them,
Yeah.
if that means a bunch of like dumb kids movies in between, that's fine. The Wild Robot is like very mature. It does that thing that I absolutely love when it comes to kids movies, where it doesn't talk down to them. It talks about real issues and like loss and grief, found families. It's a very heartwarming tale, and ultimately, it's about family, and that's what makes it so important. Although, yeah, that whatever Carrie Fisher said about the Last Jedi. Um, yeah, check out the Wild Robot. I don't know. I feel like I keep saying, "Oh, these are all slept on," but like I think the Wild Robot has like really high rating on Letterboxd, or at least it did when I saw it, which is definitely earned. I've kind of like waffled back and forth where I'm like, is this a 5-star movie? But then when I think about it, I'm like, I can't think of a single thing to change. Like the art direction is phenomenal, the voice acting is great, the writing itself is really, really good. Um, so like I have absolutely no complaints, no criticisms on for the Wild Robot. It's just great. If you like the Iron Giant, if you love the Iron Giant, I think you're gonna find something to love about the Wild Robot. It's a great film. That's my number two.
Yeah, I wanted to watch that, and life was crazy at that time, and we couldn't have time to go to the theater. And I tried to watch it this past weekend, but it's $20 and everything right now.
Oh,
So
what?
yeah,
That's okay.
um, I will see it as soon as it is on streaming, and if it doesn't come to it, I will purchase it. So it seems like one I will absolutely and like really love.
See, I don't know. I don't know because you have a very particular taste where you either like Tarkovsky or you like
Mm,
robots, and I have a
yes,
very hard time like getting you pegged on like what kinds of movies that you'd like. You're a very hard
I don't
person to
think I have
recommend
enough of
movies
a
for.
palette yet to like
That's
really
true.
figure that out. I usually like really enjoy movies that I watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're ones that I really seek out, like I've seen a lot of the garbage like Marvel stuff or whatever.
Well, sure.
Um, but it just takes a lot for me to sit down and do it,
Mm,
which I will try to break next year. That's one of my goals.
that's your goal.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
Um, but yeah,
that's fine.
one number one is Stalker. I think that's clear
Yeah, I
to
knew that was
everybody
gonna happen.
listening. But yeah, this is probably the best movie I've ever seen. I think just not knowing a lot about it going in and just like letting it take me for 3 hours was a downright spiritual experience at the end of the
Mm,
day. I think everything about it is just absolutely phenomenal. Just like I was stunned by the camera work of just the opening shot and the way that it was kind of like graded and everything was just like I didn't know what we were getting into, but it was just such an amazing experience. I think again, you have to be a very particular kind of person to really be into it. You have to be into the kind of philosophy and all of this kind of stuff that he portrays in this film. But I think just like a statement from him being like an Orthodox Christian too, and like in the Soviet Union, which there's definitely friction there. He had a
Mhm.
lot of things to say about a lot of different things, and I think all of them come across as like there's no real answer, but there's a lot of big questions, and there's a lot of connection that can be found between these very diverse characters that he puts across in this movie. Um, I also just love, like, this is the first Soviet film I've watched. I think just seeing a artist full vision without the interruption of like this needing to make a profit or look
Oh,
appealing to
sure.
theaters was
Yeah.
like you really get to see the inner depths of what he was truly going for, and he doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if it's too long or if there's a shot that doesn't make sense or any of that. Like, it is just purely his vision, and I thought that was just like phenomenal. I get that with Solaris too, but I think Stalker is like the fully fleshed out version of that, because I
Mhm.
feel like I could see parts of him in every single one of the characters in that movie. Um, I love the pacing of it too. Some people say it's really slow, but I love the methodical kind of pacing to just kind of take in the environment and the subject matter that we're dealing with. I love that all of his movies too are very simple plots. Like, they're very simple to jot down, but the real like depth of it is in the incredible character work that he's doing in the 70s and 60s too, where like I don't think movies, especially Western movies, are not known for making character studies that are like super fleshed out or anything. It's a lot of
Mhm.
action stuff. It's a lot of like
In the
focus on a plot.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so just ahead of its time in that regard. But yeah, phenomenal. I thought it was just like incredible. I would go through that 3 hour journey again too, I think, which definitely takes, you have to really be into it to do that again. But yeah,
Oh, yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, Stalker. Oh, I don't need to get into it. Yes, but what you're saying about Stalker being ahead of its time, I don't think so.
Okay.
Especially with like like comparing it to Western stuff. The 70s were chock full of character studies and things like that. Like that was when like Paul Schrader and not Paul Schrader. Whatever. Guy who wrote Taxi Driver and Martin Scorsese were on their weirdo shit and were constantly doing like weirdo character studies. Because everyone was sad and depressed. Nixon got away with
That's true.
Watergate
Yeah, I
and
was
like
thinking more of the
Vietnam.
80s instead of the 70s.
Oh yeah, in the 80s that was like
Yeah.
super commercialization
Yes.
and like big blockbusters. But yeah, the 70s were really sad and everyone was miserable and depressed. So yeah, I mean, it definitely rode that wave. In a lot of ways, it is ahead of its time. Like I think a lot of like David Lynch's stuff, anybody who's
Mhm.
in that lane was definitely inspired by it. Um, but I don't know. I don't like that movie at all. Uh, sorry,
One day.
stalkerheads. I don't think so. I just don't think
No, I don't
it's
see you ever, honestly.
no. Like there's certain and maybe this also I don't want to like sit here and poo poo your number one pick, but I think a lot of your like big
I'm on the popular side for this. So this isn't like it would be anything
oh yeah,
like,
yeah
yeah.
whatever, but like I think a lot of the like things you're saying where it's like oh just the shots were phenomenal. I've seen a lot of movies where they have a lot of phenomenal shots but nothing to back it up, and so when I'm
Mhm.
seeing that in Stalker I'm getting like whiffs of like weirdo art house movies and I'm like ah I've seen this before even though it's all great. It's like I don't for me there's not a whole lot to grab onto aside from the great shots and for me that's not enough. But that's okay. We can
Gotta open
disagree.
your mind, man.
I that's not me. I am very close-minded. I'm a very intolerant person in general.
It's
I
true.
did say I'm Christian, so it tracks. And whatever. I hate Russians and whatever.
Mhm.
Free Ukraine or
Whatever.
I don't care anymore. Who cares about geopolitics? I just want to talk about my number one movie, which is Hundreds of Beavers. Um,
Correct.
yes. Uh, I'm the movie guy. Uh, I theoretically I should have good taste. I've seen a lot of movies. Why is Hundreds of Beavers, this little silly slapstick comedy, my number one movie? Because it is the most creative movie I've seen in a long time, if not the most creative movie I've ever seen. I just rewatched it last week, not specifically to prepare, but I had a day off and my friend and I were looking for something to do. So I said, why don't you come on over? We'll watch Hundreds of Beavers. And so we did that. And I was a little worried because I wasn't in a theater. It was just me and one other person. I'm like, I don't know. Is it going to hit the same? Because I've seen it twice in theaters and it still hits. It is hilarious. I think even if you watch this by yourself, you're still going to be cackling at some of the things because, man, the things that they come up with are just absolutely insane. I will say it takes a little bit of time to get into it, but all of it is setting up these really great creative payoffs where by the end of it, you have bits compounding on top of bits, compounding on top of bits. Things that were established in the first 5 minutes are finally coming back to pay off at the very end of the movie. It's this like great like comedy, and comedies don't usually benefit from this, but it really benefits from a repeat viewing. And like the jokes don't necessarily get stale too, because you can watch a guy fall over 1,000 times and it's still funny, especially if they're in a rabbit costume or a beaver costume or a dog costume. Basically, everybody in this movie is in an animal costume except for the main characters. And that in and of itself is hilarious because I don't know. It's just funny that this is so low budget. But the things that they were able to capture, and the things that they were able to put on screen despite the low budget is honestly just astounding. So, shout out Mike Cheslick, I think is the director. Um, he's from your home state. As actually the story kind of leads to the formation of Green Bay. So, thank you, Hundreds of
Oh, I
Beavers.
have to watch it.
You have to watch it. It's Wisconsin representation. Their last movie was called Lake Michigan Monster. It also took place in Wisconsin.
Great.
They're Midwest boys. It has that classic Midwest comedy where it is just kind of, it's smart, but it's also dumb. It's like Airplane. There's like some clever jokes in there, but then not Money Plane. Money Plane is not, well, it's not intentionally funny.
I thought it was funny.
It's not intentionally funny. But like Airplane has like some clever jokes, and then like for like one shot, there's just a lady that runs in front of the cameras and her tits are out, and she just like stops in front of the camera and then moves on. And it's just like there's no like nudity or anything of Hundreds of Beavers, but there's like legitimately really creative set pieces, and then just like a beaver costume guy falls over and you can see his like foot or like his shoe to his costume falls off. And that just gets me every time. I don't care. Like, I don't care if it's lowbrow. I'm not usually someone that like laughs at like, oh, video of someone falling over. But for some reason, if they're in an animal costume, it's infinitely better. So yeah, Hundreds of Beavers, it's a 4.5-star movie because I don't know. There's a little bit of a slump in the middle. I'll say it. But man, when it pays off, and it's one of the most inventive movies I've seen in a long, long time. So please check out Hundreds of Beavers. It's on Prime. It's free. And, well, actually, this podcast will be coming out. Actually, we're recording this podcast on the night that it is returning to theaters, one night only.
Oh.
I didn't see it. Well, I was going to see it, but then my friend said that she couldn't go. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to do the podcast. I'm going to do what I should have been doing originally, and now I'm here. So we're here. Hundreds of Beavers is my number one movie of the year. I did want to give a little tip of the cap shout out. 2 movies that I watched this year that I gave 5 stars to. First one, Perfect Days, Wim Wenders. Great movie. I think I spent a long time talking about it when I watched it, but a great little slice of life about this very, very adorable man in Japan. Didn't even mean to rhyme. I don't know how Wim Wenders keeps doing this. He's a German guy. He perfectly captured Americana in Paris, Texas. And now, like, he perfectly captured the atmosphere and feel of Japan in Perfect Days. And I have no idea how he keeps getting away with this. because he's not from these places, but he like captures the most authentic ways in like ways that people from the countries aren't able to do. Like there's a bunch of American movies that aren't able to capture the feeling of like being in America in the same way that Paris, Texas does. So if you've not seen Perfect Days, do it. It's one of those. It's one of those where I'm surprised I like it as much as I do because it is so artsy and there's like not a lot of story to it. It's kind of inspired by Jean Dielman, the long title, where it is like the same thing kind of over and over again. But man, just a perfect movie called Perfect Days. And also Silence of the Lambs. I rewatched it this year. I decided to bump it up to 5 stars. I do think it is a 5-star movie. One of the best horror movies of all time. Barely a horror movie, but it's a great little thriller. So if you've somehow never seen Silence of the Lambs, check that one out too. Clarice. The guy throws his semen on Clarice. There's the Hannibal Lecter mask. I'm just thinking of like recognizable scenes. There's the dog. The white dog looks down at the hole in the kidnapped victim, and then the kidnapped victim tries to lure the dog into the hole, and then the dog falls into the hole. It's awesome. There's a girl that's like in the bottom of a well, but Buffalo Bill is like a trans person, and that means that they're scary, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like whatever. He, she, they is scary because she, they, he is a trans person, and and he, she, they murder people. So that also makes them scary. But I'm just scared because they can't figure out what's going on in their pants, and I'm a Christian, and that scares me. What's really scary is that people aren't able to figure out what bathroom they're going to be able to go into. Am I right?
We should do a 24-hour podcast and see how long it takes for you to say something so abysmally bad that we just get taken off the air.
Well, that wasn't bad enough.
No, I
Overt
think you can go further.
transphobia.
You said something in our top 10 video that I had to cut out of the video, so
I
we can go
don't.
farther.
You don't need to cut that out.
Given events of the last week, I think I literally have to.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I won't repeat it here.
No, yeah, that's smart.
That's fine. Okay, fine. I'm not actually transphobic. I have a trans friend, okay?
Now you can pull that card.
Yeah, I can pull that card. That's why I was so excited when she came out. Oh, boy. Anyways. Sorry, that was a little bit of an inside joke. That's something that she does a lot. She just says anyways and then doesn't say anything. So that is our list week for movies, shows, and games. Again, if you want to hear our music takes, head on over to the main channel. I said something so shocking that it had to be removed. Subscribe to our Patreon if you want to hear that bit. We don't have a Patreon, but we will post it there
Follow
eventually.
us on Blue Sky.
Follow us on Blue Sky and Threads. We are too scared of Elon Musk because he's too muscular and masculine for us, so we have to get off of that platform. We were barely on it before. Well, we were on
Actually,
it
you
for a
got
while.
banned before, Elon.
That's true. I guess I have a lot to thank Elon for. So he
Although
brought,
no, I guess you probably wouldn't get banned for anything. So
yeah, he
you
brought me
could go
back.
crazy if you wanted to.
I could say what I said in the top 10 video.
Oh yeah, you could say whatever you wanted.
I don't know if I want to post that on the Boy Time.
No, you shouldn't. But
Why not?
I mean,
you're
that's
right.
up to you.
It doesn't
Yeah.
really make much context outside because it made sense and
Yeah, you're fine unless you do something bad, and then all that is gonna come back.
if I do
If
something
you get like,
bad.
if you do something like extremely bad, and they have to pull like all of your content, like they're in for a ride. That's
Hey,
all I'm saying.
I'm saying I'm a white guy. Zach Fox has
That's
an
true.
excellent point about this, where it's like, have you seen that tweet of his where it's like it's a picture of like a dad and his 2 kids on a jet ski, and then the tweet is like, this is the picture that they would use when he murders his
exactly.
entire family because he's a white guy. So like, if I went out and I like murdered a bunch of people or whatever, And then they would just use a nice photo of me from
Just
like
use
me
your
winning the
Spotify
spell.
profile picture.
Yeah, where it's a nice photo of me.
Yeah.
That's what they would use. This very handsome murderer killed a bunch of people and said something ironically transphobic in a
On a
podcast.
A 3-hour-long podcast episode.
Yeah, the FBI has to watch through all of this, which is
Yep.
awesome.
Hello.
They probably liked the transphobia thing because they're all about that. Those
Probably gave him a good chuckle.
sickos. Those sick fucks at the FBI. Get out of here. If you're in the FBI, get out. You're not welcome. Unless you're Clarice from The Silence of the Lambs. Or Jodie Foster.
Okay.
Jodie Foster is welcome on the show, even though she
That's
played
true.
someone who was in the FBI. Willem Dafoe,
That doesn't matter.
also welcome on the show,
Mhm.
even though he
Yep.
played someone in the FBI in Mississippi Burning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein, dead, but welcome on the show if you wanted to
Mhm.
be. I'm trying to think of anyone else that I disagree with, but would be willing to have them on the show if it meant
Pol
clout.
Pot.
Pol Pot? Pol Pot's
Might
definitely
be.
not alive anymore.
No.
What
Thank
about
God.
what about I can't think of anyone that I really disagree with that I would want to have on the show. I think everyone alive right now I kind of like.
Okay.
Even Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Mhm.
Hillary Rotten Clinton. That's just too much of a mouthful. Why did they make that their like name?
You really should have thought about that.
Yeah, that's why he lost once. 1 out of 3 times he lost. It's a pretty. It's actually pretty good. It's actually
Horrible record.
It's a pretty good record, actually. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. That's what Meatloaf always used to
3
say.
ain't bad.
Anyways, have a good year. Next year is gonna be funny, probably.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back. We're gonna have a bunch of bits. I'm gonna say some things that no one else can say, but I can say them.
Okay.
Because I'm doing it as a joke, and I'm being very specific. I have a lot of tact when it comes to these jokes. That's what people don't understand. Is that I am not making fun of the people. When I was being transphobic before, I wasn't making fun of trans people. I was making fun of transphobes that would actually say that. It's actually a little trick they don't teach in comedy school. That's what Norm Macdonald always taught me when he was teaching me all these lessons.
Mhm.
But that's the end of the show. Bye-bye.